Chapter 203. When Chu Feng returned to Shuntian, he gazed at the wide streets and tall buildings and recalled his recent experiences. He was somewhat lost in thought. He had spent most of his time in the wilderness. He had slaughtered a scarlet western dragon at the foot of Mount Kunlun and battled the Zeus golden vines on Mount Olympus. All of this was like a dream, unreal. The world before him was filled with the aura of life, but he spent most of his time far away from it. It was as if he was living in the primordial mountains, fighting with all kinds of ferocious birds and beasts. He shook his head. Every time he returned from the outside, he would feel as if time and space were misaligned, unable to determine which side was more real. When Chu Feng returned home, Wang Jing and Chu Ziyuan happened to open the door. They were startled at first, then pleasantly surprised. "I told you to come back within 3 days. How many days has it been?" Wang Jing grabbed his ear with a smile, but her eyes quickly turned red. "Mom, let go. Didn't I come back already? There are too many king-grade ingredients out there. I couldn't help but want to eat more, so I was delayed for 2 days." Chu Feng tried his best to speak in a relaxed tone. He knew that his parents had been very anxious during this period, especially when they had heard of his death. It was as if the end of the world had come. Recently, the Battle of Mount Kunlun had been broadcasted live. The two of them must have seen the fierce battle between him and the Jilin king. How could they not be alarmed? That was a legendary dragon. Thinking about how he often encountered such things, the two of them naturally couldn't calm down. They must have been constantly on tenterhooks during his absence. Not long after, the entire family was overjoyed. After Chu Feng's return, the two of them were completely at ease. They were both happy-go-lucky people and had forgotten about the fear they had experienced during this period of time. "Mom, I brought back something good for you. Look, this is a dragon bone bracelet. If you wear it all year round, it will invigorate the muscles, bones, and blood vessels and stimulate cell growth. This item is priceless. I chose the most essential part of the frontal bone. Its effects are miraculous." Chu Feng took out a sparkling white bracelet. It seemed to be made of the finest suet seed material and had a lustrous luster. Moreover, it was suffused with a rich and vigorous vitality. "Is it really that good?" Wang Jing didn't quite believe it. "Rest assured, the effect is even better than what I said. Do you know how high a price several important women in Bodhi genetics and celestial biology offer to Kunlun for such bracelets?" "How much?" "The price is enough to buy a few buildings. Hurry up and sell this bracelet to them," Wang Jing immediately said. "But this bracelet can beautify. If you wear it all year round, it will stimulate cell activity and growth. It won't be a problem to maintain your youth." After hearing Chu Feng's words, Wang Jing decisively put it on her wrist and said in an extremely firm and affirmative tone, "They can forget about this bracelet." Chu Feng was immediately overjoyed. Then, he handed 2 red and translucent paperweights to Chu Ziyuan and said mysteriously, "Dad, this is ground from a dragon's horn. It contains boundless vitality and masculinity. If you like to read books, you can put this paperweight in your study room. I guarantee that you will be full of energy every day. Every day, you will be like an 18-year-old hot-blooded teenager." "You little brat, is this how you talk to your own father?" Chu Ziyuan stared at him with a smile, but still carefully took the dragon horn paperweights. Chu Feng laughed and said, "Don't worry, this thing is not afraid of falling. It is very sturdy. It is the most precious part of the dragon horn. You can use it as a hammer when you are free. I guarantee that it will be stronger than those iron hammers." The family of 3 was happy and harmonious. During the meal, Chu Ziyuan was very happy. He took out a bottle of Mao Dai and asked Chu Feng to drink with him. Wang Jing saw Chu Feng take out something from his huge bag. Among them was some food like jerky. She asked, "What is this?" "It is black. Can it be eaten?" Chu Feng laughed and said, "This is dragon jerky and donkey jerky. They are all made from the fresh meat of king-level creatures. Haven't you heard? Dragon meat in the sky and donkey meat on the ground. Now we have both. If it wasn't for the fact that I was worried that fresh meat would go bad, I would have brought back hundreds of pounds. Now, we can only eat jerky." Not long after, Wang Jing and Chu Ziyuan repeatedly praised the food. It was delicious. They started eating one after another, no longer complaining about the appearance of the food. Chu Feng seriously suspected that this was the reason why he became a foodie. When they were almost done eating, Wang Jing seemed to remember something. She said, "This is the meat of a king-level creature. Can we eat it?" "Yes, we can. Don't listen to that old liar Lu Tong. He didn't let us eat the ash wolf's meat because he couldn't bear to part with it. He took it to the lab for experiments." Chu Feng explained to them. No matter how strong a creature was, after it was killed, its mysterious energy would gradually dissipate. The meat could be roasted, but it would also rot. Of course, this kind of meat contained substances that were extremely beneficial to the human body. Moreover, this dragon meat has been processed. Before it was cooked, we used our energy to purify it. Chu Feng added with a smile. "Ah, this is really strange. I feel a warm current coming from my body. It feels like I have an endless supply of energy. Is this too nourishing? I feel like I have too much energy right now," Chu Ziyuan said. "It is indeed effective. Hurry up and send some of that old man Lu Tong. He is a good person. During the few days you were gone, he would come by almost every day." "Oh, and also Big Ears Ouyang Qing and the others," Wang Jing urged. "Don't worry. I've already prepared it for them," Chu Feng said with a smile. After dinner, the family of three chatted while watching TV. In the end, they talked about business. "This time, if you don't go find a girlfriend, you will have to go on a blind date and get married as soon as possible." Wang Jing mentioned this matter. "I'm still young. I'm only in my 20s. People will laugh at me." Chu Feng was very thick-skinned, pretending to be young. "Still young? People the same age as your father, and I already have grandchildren." Wang Jing used an unquestionable tone to suppress Chu Feng. "That's because you and my father married late and had children late. That's why I was born later. Why do I have to be born earlier?" Chu Feng was not satisfied. Chu Ziyuan opened his mouth and said, "The main thing is that your mother is afraid. If you don't go out and stay in this city, she will definitely not rush you. But now, who knows when you will go to slay dragons and tigers again? How can she not be afraid? If something happens to you, what will she do? You have to understand your mother's difficulties." This time, he was firmly on Wang Jing's side. Wang Jing glared at Chu Feng and said, "You little brat, you are getting more and more capable, aren't you? Not only did you slay dragons, but you also brought that reporter named Carter to film the attack on Mount Olympus for you. You are so lawless. In a few days, are you going to the East Sea to catch a flood dragon and the Southern Heavenly Gate to catch a deity?" Chu Feng felt guilty. He really did have an appointment with Yellow Cattle and Black Yak. When the time was right, he would go out to sea to find the Fusang Divine Tree. The two scolded him and suppressed Chu Feng to the point where he couldn't get angry. Finally, he stood up and said, "Fine, I will go and ask someone first and see if they are willing. If it doesn't work out, I will go on a blind date." "Go quickly," the two urged. Chu Feng suddenly felt that although he was being controlled back home, it was also very warm. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that other people's homes should be the same. However, he often appeared in the primitive mountains such as Mount Kunlun and Mount Olympus. He was a little wild and couldn't stop for the time being. "One day, will I leave this world?" he muttered to himself in his room. This was a question he had been thinking about all this time. Perhaps he wouldn't have much time to think about it. He learned many things from Yellow Cattle. This land was very special, but Yellow Cattle would leave here one day after finding the opportunity to become a sage ancestor. According to Yellow Cattle, the outside world was too wonderful. The world was full of ups and downs. Empires stood in great numbers, mysterious holy lands, resplendent starry skies, and grand worlds. In those places, geniuses fought for hegemony. Goddesses competed for beauty. There was too much splendor, and it could be said to be colorful. Chu Feng admitted that he had only learned some bits and pieces from Yellow Cattle and was already tempted. How dazzling would the real outer realms and those endless worlds be? He really wanted to see it for himself one day. At the very least, when he was drunk, he had promised Yellow Ox that if Yellow Ox were to leave one day, he would find a suitable time to follow its footsteps and look for it. He wanted to experience the ancient and glorious transcendent realm. Therefore, he wanted to make his parents happy as much as possible at this stage. He wanted to fulfill his filial piety and satisfy their wishes. Chu Feng thought for a while and searched through the list of names on his communicator. Finally, his gaze landed on Linoy's name. He rubbed his chin and said to himself, I always say I'm very thick-skinned, but it'll be quite embarrassing if I call and get rejected again. Finally, he dialed Linoy's communicator. In the end, the two of them had been together for a period that couldn't be considered dating. They were most familiar with each other and had some feelings for each other. Very soon, Linoy picked up and asked if he had returned home. Chu Feng told her that he had just finished the reunion dinner and was being pressured by two peerless powerhouses. They would force him to go on a blind date the next day, and now he was asking for her help. Linoy paused for a moment. What a joke, Chu Feng. The great demon king Chu was being forced to go on a blind date? This was enough to make the headlines. Chu Feng sighed lightly. He had long since given up on this ex-girlfriend, but in the end, he couldn't help but say, why don't you think about it and come over tomorrow to help me deal with this calamity? Don't take pleasure in my misfortune, okay? Linoy shook her head, telling him that she couldn't come to Shuntian. If you really won't come, then I can only go with the will of the heavens and go on a blind date tomorrow, Chu Feng said. If you can find a girl you like, get married early and be happy early, Linoy said calmly and seriously. Very well. Chu Feng hung up. Afterwards, he ran to the living room and said boldly, Mom, let's go on a blind date tomorrow. Son, have you thought it through? Don't worry, Mom won't force you. We'll just meet and understand each other first. We'll slowly find a suitable one. This kind of thing can't be rushed. Wang Jing felt embarrassed. It's fine. Who knows? Maybe it'll be love at first sight. What if I meet a devastatingly beautiful demoness? I'll let her accept me, Chu Feng said. You brat, you've never been decent since you were young. Wang Jing glared at him and said, the key is whether someone is good or not just their appearance. Chapter 204. Chu Feng got up early in the morning. His habit had become second nature. Facing the bright red sun, he began to circulate his breathing technique. This had become his compulsory homework. Before long, he felt refreshed. Many mysterious patterns appeared all over his body. They were the same color as the essence flames of extreme yang. They were dazzling and hot, making Chu Feng feel so comfortable that he wanted to moan. Following that, he activated the thunderous breathing technique. This caused quite a commotion. His body was like thunder, emitting rumbling sounds as his flesh resonated with blinding light. I wonder if there's really a complete version of the thunderous breathing technique in the ancient Himalayas. Chu Feng pondered. Very soon, he finished his morning class. Now, he was sufficiently powerful. Apart from the old Lama and the Mastiff King, no one under 6 severed shackles was his match. Mastering the mysterious breathing technique would greatly benefit his constitution. After breakfast, Chu Feng found that Wang Jing had already started to arrange the matchmaking arrangements. He immediately got up and rushed to the Hollow Jade Temple. Go home after meeting Old Man Liu. Don't delay business. Wang Jing reminded him from behind. Within the Hollow Jade Temple, everyone's eyes were burning with passion when they saw Chu Feng arrive. It was as if they had seen a national treasure that had just been unearthed. God Chu, long time no see. You're finally back. You have no idea how much we've been talking about you these days, especially when we saw you slaying a dragon at the foot of Mount Kunlun. We're all so excited. God Chu, some people say you're the fierce person who created the gourmet rankings. Is that true? The group surrounded Chu Feng. They all wanted to get a definite answer from him. At the same time, they also had many other questions. For example, what did dragon meat taste like? To this, Chu Feng directly distributed a bag of dry dragon meat to them. This caused a wave of exclamations as everyone praised the delicacy. This is dragon meat? Oh God, I've actually eaten a dragon. God Chu, were you the one who flattened the Vatican? The group of people bombarded Chu Feng indiscriminately, forcing him to flee. He then rushed into Lu Tong's office. The old man had long since discovered his arrival and was waiting for him. Lu Tong couldn't remain calm either. He looked at Chu Feng with a fiery gaze and asked, "Did you bring back some dragon blood?" "I don't have dragon blood, but I did bring back a lot of meat." "Here, take it." Chu Feng threw him a big package. "You really brought it back?" Lu Tong was excited. He clenched his fists and said, "It's of great significance." However, when he opened the bag and saw the pile of black dried meat, his face fell and he glared at the kid in front of him. "If you don't like it, I'll give it to someone else." Chu Feng took it. 15 minutes later, the aroma of wine wafted out of Lu Tong's office. In the beginning, he stared at Chu Feng with a dark face, but in the end, he took a bite of the dried dragon meat and became addicted to it. He simply took out a bottle of century-old wine and asked Chu Feng to drink with him. Chu Feng's eyes widened. That wine jar was filled with the aura of age. Lu Tong was way too extravagant. He could casually open a drawer and find such treasures. "You're too corrupt." "What corrupt? I'm just basking in your limelight. These are all gifts for you. I didn't help you get rid of some beforehand," Lu Tong said without a trace of embarrassment. "What's going on?" Chu Feng was puzzled and scratched his head. "It's all because of those corporations. They heard that you're returning to Shuntian, and now they're like sharks that have smelled blood. They've swarmed over like a swarm of bees. Since they couldn't find you, they've blocked the hollow jade temple and piled up the gifts here," Lu Tong explained. Chu Feng had caused such a huge commotion. He had come back from the dead, killed a dragon with 5 severed shackles, and participated in the Western expedition. This caused all the major powers to become restless. Before his return, all the corporations had begun to extend olive branches to Lu Tong. They wanted to use him to meet Chu Feng and rope him in. Lu Tong brought Chu Feng to have a look. Many of the rooms were full and filled with gifts. It was a dazzling sight. "I'm staying at the Hollow Jade Temple. I have no intention of relying on them," Chu Feng replied. "They don't necessarily want you to join them. They only want to improve our relationship. This is their way of expressing goodwill," Lu Tong explained. "These gifts range from fine wine to boxing manuals to weapons." Chu Feng flipped through them, but he couldn't find anything that he particularly needed. The so-called fifth scriptures were all incomplete scriptures. The Hollow Jade Temple had similar collections, such as the Xingyi Fist. The fist manual that was given as a gift only contained the tiger form of the Xingyi 12 forms. Chu Feng had long since mastered it. The fist manual was too precious. If there really was a complete and peerless secret manual, the major powers would definitely not leak it. "Is that all?" Chu Feng asked. "There were also a few beauties. I thought they were here to deliver gifts, but it seems they wanted to stay too. I chased them away," Lu Tong said. "Old man, I want to break off all ties with you." Lu Tong was flabbergasted after hearing this. "How thick-skinned are you? How dare you ask for this?" The two chatted while drinking. "You actually dared to flatten the Holy See. The European countries are all protesting. They think you're too dangerous," Lu Tong informed. "I didn't do it," Chu Feng denied flatly. Lu Tong said disdainfully, "Keep pretending. You're still pretending in front of me. The whole world thinks you did it. There's no need for evidence. It's enough to guess." Of course, no one dared to do anything to him, even though they had guessed it was him. This was especially true in the East. Many people were cheering. "Brat, you're too evil. You've actually caused such a huge storm. All right, is your gourmet ranking still up? After eating your dragon jerky, I strongly recommend dragon meat to be the #1 delicacy," Lu Tong said. "I didn't do it either. Keep pretending," Lu Tong said disdainfully. The major powers had extended an olive branch to Chu Feng because they had guessed that he had done a series of big things and possessed terrifying strength. Chu Feng reeked of alcohol when he left the Hollow Jade Temple. He wanted to take a stroll outside, but he didn't dare show his head after a quick glance. There were actually many people waiting outside the Hollow Jade Temple. It seemed they were all from the major powers. They were paying close attention to whether or not he had returned in order to rope him in. Chu Feng quietly retreated and ran back to Lu Tong's place. He picked up half of the century-old wine and returned to the family area. "Dad, I brought back some good wine for you." Wang Jing told Chu Feng that he could go on a blind date that night. Mom, I can't go on blind dates so casually. After all, I made a name for myself. People will recognize me at a glance. What if someone with ulterior motives tries to approach me? Chu Feng tried his best to make the matter sound serious. You don't need to tell me that. I've already thought of it. I've already hired a headhunting company to help. Also, don't be in a hurry to show up. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. It was just a blind date. Why would he hire a headhunting company? Their profession was completely different. Why would they care? At the same time, he wanted to shout, "Who's in a hurry? I'm not in a hurry at all." "Don't worry," they've agreed. "It's definitely reliable." Wang Jing said, "I don't think it's reliable. I'm firmly against it." Chu Feng was extremely unwilling. He didn't want to be a laughing stock in the future. "All right then, I'll contact those companies that specialize in blind dates." In the evening, Wang Jing shouted, "Xiao Feng, let's go." So fast. Chu Feng was really convinced. His mom was too swift and decisive. She had already contacted the company and signed him up for a blind date. Let me tell you, this blind date is for elite beauties and handsome men. It's called a diamond-level blind date. If it wasn't for a good friend of mine who knows the person in charge, I wouldn't have been able to sign up. According to Wang Jing, this was an elite blind date. If it wasn't a diamond bachelor, then it would be a beautiful executive or a top scholar. Chu Feng's eyelids twitched as he listened. There's such a blind date? Wang Jing told him the details and said, "I've looked into it. It's not bad. You young people like it. When the time comes, you'll wear a mask and chat. You won't talk about your true feelings based on your looks." The sky was getting dark. Chu Feng and the rest had already arrived at the 29th floor of the skyscraper. They had already put on their masks and were ready to enter. "I've thought it through. This way, you don't have to worry about others recognizing you. This blind date is practically prepared for you." Wang Jing smiled. "Yo, you're so confident. This blind date is specially prepared for you." Narcissism, TSK. Behind them, a woman wearing a queen's mask walked over. She happened to hear Wang Jing's words and was very disdainful. They couldn't see her face, but her eyes were indeed beautiful. She was also very tall and had an excellent figure. She was the first to enter the blind date. "Xiao Feng, I'm telling you, don't look for such a woman," Wang Jing warned. She couldn't go in and had to wait in another resting room. Who would have thought that the woman would overhear him? She gracefully walked back and smiled sweetly at him. Blinking her large eyes, she said, "Handsome brother, let's go in together and have a good chat." "Sure." Chu Feng walked in with her. "You brat." Wang Jing was so angry that she wanted to poke the back of Chu Feng's head with her finger. "Mom, don't worry. Wait for me outside." Chu Feng directly walked away. "As if I'm not worried." Wang Jing really wanted to chase after him. This brat couldn't resist the temptation. In fact, the woman walked with Chu Feng for a while. When she left Wang Jing's sight, she apologized and wanted to leave. However, what surprised her was that Chu Feng only nodded and didn't pay any attention to her. She was immediately dissatisfied and curious. Chu Feng stared at the beautiful figure in the distance. He was puzzled and murmured, "It can't be." A peerless expert with 6 severed shackles also came here for a blind date. He hesitated for a moment before walking forward. He wanted to see what was going on. He suspected that he had seen wrongly. The venue was very big. After walking in, he didn't find the woman. She had long since disappeared. It can't be her. Chu Feng thought about it and felt that the beautiful figure lacked that kind of powerful aura. "Lu Shiyun, don't eat so much. We're here for a blind date, not to let you eat." A tall man wearing a mask looked at a white-clothed, white-stocked woman not far away, who looked quite otherworldly. "Brother, you're the one here for a blind date. I'm just here to accompany you," the lady in white said, and continued to eat. "You're just a glutton. Last time at Mount Taiyang, you ate other people's mutton skewers and, White Tiger, you're not allowed to say that again. Otherwise, I'll get angry with you." The lady no longer called a brother. On the first floor of the skyscraper, a slender and graceful lady reluctantly put on her mask and entered the elevator. "Luoshin, this isn't a real blind date." "What's there to resist? I just saw that you were bored, so I brought you here to join the fun. I heard it's fun." Chapter 2:05. Chu Feng walked left and right absent-mindedly. If news of this got out that a dignified king with 4 severed shackles, the one who had just wreaked havoc in the West and flattened the Holy See, was secretly attending a blind date, it would be a big joke. His last blind date with Xia Qinyu had caused quite a commotion. Even after a long time, he was still being teased by his acquaintances. Things were even more different now. If you were to meet someone here and shout that a dignified dragon slayer was attending a blind date right after returning from the West, countless jaws would drop. There shouldn't be anyone here. Chu Feng muttered to himself. He felt that he wasn't that unlucky and gradually calmed down. He picked up his plate and began to eat. Obviously, he had guessed wrong. At the very least, Lu Shiyan was here. It was just that he hadn't paid attention to her for a while. Jiang Luoshan was also here. They could definitely be considered acquaintances. If they were to really see each other, they would definitely stare at each other. Jiang Luoshan's appearance was impeccable. It could be said that she was devastatingly beautiful. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been called the national goddess. At this time, she was wearing a white fox mask, which made her look even more seductive. Her watery eyes were darting about everywhere. The lady accompanying her was not Xia Qinyu, but her aunt. The two had yet to enter and were standing at the door. Jiang Luoshan felt that something was odd. This aunt of hers was not usually this enthusiastic. Today, she had taken the initiative to accompany her, especially to participate in this so-called blind date. Was it really just for fun? Jiang Luoshan suspected that her family was really looking for a target man for her. Luoshan, you should go in by yourself. Aunt just got engaged not too long ago. It's not appropriate to go in like this. I'll wait for you outside, Jiang Luoshan's aunt said with a smile. She had indeed come with a purpose. Bodhi Biogenetics was an exceptionally well-informed giant. They had received an important piece of news in advance and had made this kind of targeted arrangement. Jiang Luoshan's aunt was in charge. No, aunt, you brought me here. You must come with me, but we'll have to wait for a while. I've already spoken to Qinyu. She'll be here in a while, Jiang Luoshan said. Her aunt was immediately speechless. She still had to bring a burden. Not long after, Xia Qinyu arrived. She was wearing a cute, lowly mask, which made her look even more youthful and energetic. She teased Jiang Luoshan as soon as they met. Haha, Hero Luo, you're really too interesting. Are you in a hurry to get married? You actually came here for a blind date. Jiang Luoshan was slender and elegant. She cast a sidelong glance at her with her beautiful eyes. She was quite calm and had a smile on her face. Her red lips were bright and sexy as she said, You're not coming either. Come, follow me in to choose a male concubine. Let's see if there are any that can catch my eye. After she finished speaking, she clasped her hands behind her back and walked confidently inside like a suave and elegant young master. All right, Empress, please. Xia Qinyu giggled and whispered in the end, I hope I don't run into that guy again this time. This blind date party was a little different. In the beginning, it was like a banquet, and there were all kinds of interaction sessions later. The venue was very spacious, and it was enough for the single men and women to interact freely. Under the luxurious crystal chandeliers, the red carpet was mixed with golden threads, which outlined an exquisite pattern. It was a festive color. Groups of young men and women were talking and laughing. The atmosphere of the blind date party was very lively. There were also some people like Chu Feng who were not proactive at all. For example, in a corner far away, there was a tall man wearing a white tiger mask. He was holding a glass of wine in his hand and staring blankly. Not far from him, there was a woman in white who was elegantly finishing her food. Chu Feng chose a table with no one else around. While eating, he sized up the people around him. Because they were all wearing masks, one could not see each other's faces. If one really wanted to judge a person by their appearance, one could only observe their eyes and figure. Intuitively speaking, the quality of the men and women who came here for blind dates was very high. Although some of the men did not look good, they were full of charisma and had an extraordinary way of talking. They were also very popular with the ladies. On the other hand, there was a young man who thought he was handsome but was too flamboyant and was looked down upon. He was not even as popular as a mature, middle-aged man sitting next to him. There were quite a number of beautiful women. Although their faces were covered by masks, there was no mistaking their excellent figures. Coupled with their ivory skin, they were indeed very pleasing to the eye. "Handsome brother, are you sitting alone?" The woman wearing a queen's mask, whom he met at the door, walked around and was surrounded by many people. But in the end, she came back and found Chu Feng. "Isn't he waiting for you?" Chu Feng replied casually. He was not afraid of this kind of situation and was quite shameless. The beautiful woman wearing a queen's mask did not expect that this taciturn, sitting alone in the corner eating food, was a little bit slippery, which was different from what she had imagined. She also wanted to tease this guy, who asked this family to be so narcissistic and even said that it was his special blind date. Now, she was a little uncertain whether she should get involved or not. "Didn't you have dinner?" The beautiful woman saw that he was still enjoying the food and had no intention of stopping, so she could not help but hint and remind him what kind of occasion it was. "No, I'm a little hungry." Chu Feng's expression was quite natural. He was not embarrassed at all and signaled her to also have some food. They could talk while eating. The beautiful woman frowned and squinted at him. A very elegant man came over and behaved appropriately. With a smile, he gracefully asked the beautiful woman wearing a queen's mask to dance. "Sure." She immediately stood up and glanced at Chu Feng, only to find that he was actually indifferent. She immediately rolled her eyes at him. "Why do I feel like I'm seeing that woman again?" Chu Feng gazed into the distance and shot a hurried glance. That woman was wearing a black dress and had disappeared into the crowd. He did not go over, nor did he release his spiritual energy to investigate. If it really was a peerless expert with 6 severed shackles, it would be best for him to quietly observe and act naturally. Although Chu Feng did not take the initiative and sat quietly to one side, he still attracted some people's attention. Such calmness and not grasping the opportunity might seem like a sign of confidence to some people. Before long, a dainty and exquisite woman came over. Her large eyes were sparkling, and she was smiling. She greeted Chu Feng and even sat down naturally. Chu Feng had already finished his meal and began to chat with her with a smile. The atmosphere could be considered harmonious. It was just that when they talked about daily matters, Chu Feng found that his response was somewhat incompatible with the gentle and ambiguous atmosphere. Even he himself felt that it was inappropriate. "Oh, you've been unemployed since graduation? It's not good to be so unmotivated. Heroes don't ask about their origins. A man can have a low starting point, but he can't lose his fighting spirit. You're very disappointing." The dainty and exquisite woman stood up and politely excused herself. She did not return after that, and only glanced at him occasionally from afar. "I'm just telling the truth. I really don't have a job, and I don't want to lie. But in the end, I was rejected." Chu Feng mumbled to himself, but his heart was actually relaxed. He stood up absent-mindedly. He couldn't just sit like this forever. Even if it was for the sake of completing his mission, he still had to walk around. There were groups of beautiful women here. He walked and looked at them. They were indeed pleasing to the eye and cultivated one's mind. In short, it was very comfortable to look at. Of course, if his mother knew that he couldn't resist the temptation, she would definitely teach him a lesson and harshly scold him. Chu Feng saw a long-legged beauty. This time, he took the initiative and went over to invite her for a dance. Fortunately, he was not rejected. At the very least, the men in front of him were politely rejected by the long-legged beauty. The main thing was that when he stood up, he looked handsome and handsome. His skin was also fair and translucent. The first impression he gave was very good. Although the blind date ultimately depended on whether the heart was in tune with the heart, appearance was also very important at this early stage. The long-legged beauty asked Chu Feng, "Do you usually work in Shuntian?" This made Chu Feng at a loss. How should he answer? Seeing him hesitate for a while, the long-legged beauty was very understanding and said, "Are you from another city?" "No, I'm just a local. But I'm not at home most of the time. I'm always running around." Chu Feng replied very honestly. "Oh, then where do you usually work? Tell me about it." "Well, I'm not busy with work. I also like to travel around." The long-legged beauty smiled brightly. Now that the beast race was no longer rioting, it was relatively peaceful. At the very least, they didn't attack human settlements on a large scale anymore. Humans had gradually adapted to the current lifestyle. The places I usually go are a bit remote and primitive, but they are really magnificent. Majestic mountains reach into the clouds, silver waterfalls fall thousands of feet, giant beasts roar, and strange birds that are tens of meters long soar through the sky. Before Chu Feng could finish, the long-legged beauty began to roll her eyes. This person's words were too unreliable. Other than beauty, I also like to exercise, such as riding horses and playing tennis. What about you? The long-legged beauty was quite direct and probing. Her tone was somewhat arrogant. Seeing that she was like a proud little peacock, Chu Feng's confusion and guilt immediately disappeared. He said very naturally, I like good food, such as barbecued earth dragons and steamed polar bears. I also like to exercise. Riding on the back of a ferocious beast and galloping through the mountains feels very comfortable, free, and unrestrained. In fact, I've always wanted to sit on the back of a king bird and travel the world. What's your job? The long-legged beauty frowned and asked, rather dissatisfied. I don't have a job yet. Chu Feng replied frankly. The long-legged beauty glared at him and shook off his hand, ending the dance prematurely. Leaving him with a proud back, she directly walked away. Chu Feng didn't have much of a temper. If he were in her shoes, he would have done the same, because a blind date target like him was too unreliable. What was the point of saying all that? It was conflicting with the atmosphere of a blind date. But this was the kind of life he lived. Hiding it now would only lead to more problems in the future. He was destined to have little to no interaction with the comfortable life of an ordinary person. Next, when he came into contact with his target again, Chu Feng's response was simple and crude, no longer so euphemistic and beautiful. For example, when someone tactfully asked him about his daily life, Chu Feng directly and valiantly replied, In 100,000 mountains, the air is fresh, and my ears are often accompanied by the cries of apes and the roars of tigers. The ending had long been decided. Without saying anything further, the beauty turned around and left, leaving him with the back of her head. I like to eat French cuisine. What about you? When the topic of food came up, a chestnut-haired girl asked with a smile. Dragon meat is the most delicious. Golden lion meat can also be considered a delicacy. Bear meat is SOSO, Chu Feng said. The chestnut-haired girl clenched her teeth, picked up her bag, and stomped away in her high heels. Just like that, Chu Feng violently cleared the place with the truth. No more girls approached him, leaving the men who had witnessed the whole process dumbfounded. Brother, you're really strong. You beat away such beautiful girls one by one and rejected them so harshly. I admire you. You have high standards. Brother, what are you doing? You're too calm. You rejected those beautiful girls one after another. Even I feel anxious for you. What a pity. Don't tell me you're determined to get that queen. The girls were all scared away by Chu Feng's valiant style. However, the men at the side became more and more curious and came over. What queen? Chu Feng didn't understand. Look, over there, there's the cold queen in a long black dress. A large group of successful men who think of themselves as experienced have tried to approach her, but they've all been rebuffed. Until now, she hasn't even smiled at a single person, much less talked to anyone. Chu Feng looked over there and saw that familiar figure again. He frowned. The more he looked, the more he felt that it was the queen. He didn't recklessly use his spirit to investigate, and he didn't act rashly. However, the woman had already sensed it. She turned around and walked over. Although she was wearing a mask, she was still very stunning. Her figure was excellent. Her snow-white skin looked even more sparkling under the contrast of the black dress. Her black hair was loose, and she had shapely eyebrows and phoenix-like eyes. She looked very cold and elegant. Oh, she's here. The man who had just introduced the queen was somewhat excited. Chu Feng felt a headache coming on. He was sure that this was that existence, a peerless expert with 6 severed shackles. Why would she appear here to participate in a blind date? The woman in the black dress was like a cold and elegant queen. Her hair danced gracefully in the wind. She had already arrived, and circled around Chu Feng. This caused many people to raise their eyebrows, especially the men. They had all been rejected, but now the queen had taken the initiative to approach a young man. Some of the women also turned back and looked over in astonishment. Chapter 206. The people nearby were all astonished and couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. This result was out of their expectations. The lady in black was extremely tall, at least 175 centimeters tall. She was like a swaying divine lotus, slender and beautiful. She stood out from the crowd, and even many men weren't as tall as her. Her jet black hair was smooth and supple, and her phoenix eyes were very beautiful. Her only flaw was that she gave off an unapproachable feeling. She had the temperament of a queen and was somewhat cold. She held a goblet in her hand and actually gestured to Chu Feng before lightly clinking glasses with him. When the sparkling and translucent goblet came into contact with her scarlet lips, an enchanting charm could be seen amidst the coldness. However, she didn't stay there for long. She briefly sized up Chu Feng and then left. She walked to a corner and put down her goblet. She stood there in a daze, as if she was thinking about something. During this process, Chu Feng didn't speak a word. He didn't speak to the elegant lady in black and treated her calmly. However, his heart was in turmoil. This was actually the undead Phoenix King. He had seen her in the Vatican's sacred medicinal garden. Back then, 99% of the kings that were killed. Only a few peerless experts with 6 severed shackles managed to escape, but they were also hunted down. For example, the Silver Moon Wolf King from Mongolia. He was known as the unrivaled king of the northern Great Steppe, but in the end, he was still intercepted by Schiller. When the undead Phoenix King escaped, the Black Dragon had personally chased after her. The outside world thought she had fallen, but who would have thought she would actually appear within the eastern borders? One had to know that she was heavily injured by the explosion of the sacred tree's silver fruits in the sacred medicinal garden and almost died. It was truly heaven-defying that she was able to survive the battle against the Black Dragon. Chu Feng glanced at the distant queen in black and was puzzled. There was something wrong with the current undead Phoenix King. She seemed to be lacking the arrogance and domineeringness from back then. She seemed to be lost in thought, as if she were recalling something. A peerless expert with 6 severed shackles shouldn't be in such a state. Her injuries haven't healed? Chu Feng guessed. So much so that he made a deeper connection. Could it be that the undead Phoenix King had undergone a great nirvana when she was in a perilous situation? This was very possible. This was a legendary race that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the gods. In the face of life and death, they could bathe in undying flames and be reborn. At this time, many men revealed strange expressions. Many of them had already experienced the black-dressed woman's coldness, but she ignored all the people who tried to hit on her. These people looked at Chu Feng and found that he was unperturbed and had no intention of taking the initiative. It seemed that he had no intention of talking to the queen in black. Beside him, someone gave Chu Feng a thumbs up and came over to whisper, "Brother, you're really smart. I'm convinced, but aren't you going too far by trying to capture him?" Chu Feng was speechless. That was a bird king with 6 severed shackles. How many people would dare to capture her? If he really lost his temper, a single slap would be enough to collapse this building. It was extremely dangerous. The way the nearby women looked at Chu Feng also changed, especially the few women who had come into contact with him just now. They all revealed strange expressions. Chu Feng didn't want to be stared at, so he turned around and walked to the other side. He didn't want the people in the distance to notice the abnormality here and stare at him. He changed places and once again saw the tall man, wearing the white tiger mask. He was slightly startled because he found that the white-robed woman beside him looked somewhat familiar. He listened attentively and almost laughed out loud. The white-robed woman was teaching the tall man how to chase after girls and how to strike up a conversation. Moreover, the more he listened, the more familiar he felt. Finally, he recalled something and stared in that direction with an odd expression. This woman was wearing a cartoon mask and looked somewhat different. She was youthful and full of vigor. She was wearing a white shirt and pants, and her neat and glossy hair hung down to her neck. Her beautiful eyes were full of spirit and quick-witted. At this moment, the corners of her mouth were slightly raised, revealing her red lips and pearly white teeth. She gave off a very sweet feeling. But very soon, she became angry. She opened her eyes wide and puffed up her cheeks as she glared at her brother. She felt that this brother of hers was a blockhead and didn't know how to chase after girls. Chu Feng was secretly delighted. He had brought his sister to this blind date and was using her as an advisor. This pair of siblings was really interesting. He knew who he had met. It was the little white tiger, Lu Shiyun. Back in the Taiyang Mountains, this vigorous and energetic girl had once mistakenly intruded into the Chu residence. As a result, she was ambushed by yellow cattle from behind. He knocked her out with a single hoof and threw her onto his bed. At that time, he didn't know that there was someone on his bed. He lay down on it and ended up being soaked in warmth. He offended this beautiful girl and had to treat her to a midnight snack as an apology. However, the mutton skewers had expired. Before she left, Chu Feng kindly gave her a box of medicine. Apparently, this sweet girl in white had been tormented badly after the incident. When she saw Chu Feng at the White Snake Ridge in the Taiyang Mountains, even with her good nature, she almost beat him up. At the same time, Chu Feng also knew the identity of the tall man wearing the white tiger mask. He must be the White Tiger. He had long known that the White Tiger worked for the Hollow Jade Temple, but he had never met him. Lu Shiyun was the White Tiger's sister. "Brother, I'm giving you advice. Did you hear me?" Lu Shiyun was fuming. She found that her brother was always distracted. "All right, what you said is too mushy. I'll go by myself." "All right, if you like someone, you should get in touch with them. I'll help you check them out later." The White Tiger left. It could be said that he had fled. It was just a blind date, but he had brought his sister along to help him come up with all kinds of ideas. It was really embarrassing. The White Tiger felt a little guilty. Fortunately, there were no acquaintances here. Otherwise, how would he be able to raise his head in the future? However, he turned his head slightly and saw Chu Feng smiling at him. It was as if he had seen everything that happened just now. The White Tiger's face suddenly turned red, and he couldn't hold it in anymore. He strode over with a strong aura. He didn't say anything and only glared at Chu Feng as a warning. Chu Feng was speechless. He wanted to say, "Brother, we're on the same side." The White Tiger felt that he had subdued this kid because he didn't even dare to utter a word. He was very satisfied and walked away to find a suitable blind date. "Over here." Lu Shiyun waved at Chu Feng with a smile after her brother had left. Her smile was bright and sweet, young and beautiful. Chu Feng felt a little guilty. Could it be that he had been recognized? What the hell? He was just laughing at the White Tiger just now, but now he had been discovered by an acquaintance. This was too embarrassing. He thought he could get away with it by wearing a mask. In the end, before he even got close, he found that Lu Shiyun was already smiling with her big eyes and bright red lips. She was extremely happy. Chu Feng knew that Lu Shiyun had long since recognized him and thought she had grasped his weakness. He was very calm. After walking over, he spoke first with a serious expression. "I didn't expect you to come here for a blind date. If this gets out, it'll be very interesting." Lu Shiyun's beautiful eyes widened. She felt that this fellow was too shameless. He was obviously the one who had come for a blind date. Moreover, with his hearing ability, he must have heard that she was accompanying her brother. This was a typical case of a guilty conscience causing the villain to attack first. "Demon King Chu, don't threaten me. You know I'm not here for a blind date. Even if you throw dirty water at me, so what? Who knows me? Do you believe that I won't shout right now? Demon King Chu is here. Ladies, come and watch the blind date." Lu Shiyun had a happy smile on her face as she threatened him. "Lower your voice. I'm just joking with you. It's a reunion of old friends. I'm just joking to show that we're close. You don't understand humor at all. Fisk, you're the one who's guilty. You're the villain who's complaining first." Lu Shiyun rolled her eyes at him. "Stop yelling. We're old friends. We haven't seen each other for so long. We need to have a good chat," Chu Feng said with a smile. Lu Shiyun tilted her head and looked at him with an unfriendly expression. Thinking back to their previous experience, Even someone as good-tempered as her wanted to beat him up. I heard you slayed a dragon. Did you bring back a dragon horn? Little White Tiger seemed to be extorting her. This made Chu Feng speechless. Soon after, he remembered that Lu Shiyun had saved him once at Mount Taiyang. She had pulled him into the air to avoid the white snake's earth-shattering attack. Suddenly, he was willing to be extorted this time. With a face full of smiles, he took a string of beads from his hand and moved closer to her mysteriously. He whispered, "This is a bead made from polished dragon horn. Even those rich ladies from celestial biology and Bodhi genetics would be willing to exchange several buildings for it. It's a gift for you. It can nourish your skin and make you look young forever. The effects are miraculous." In the distance, Little White Tiger turned around and saw this scene. His face immediately darkened. The guy he had just threatened had turned around and ran to his sister's side. Not only did he shamelessly whisper in her ear, but he also took out a string of beads and wanted to put it on his sister's neck. This was intolerable. This brat must be taking revenge. So he went to seduce his sister. Little White Tiger's face darkened as he strode over. Lu Shiyun was very happy. She snatched the dragon horn bead and put it on her fair wrist. She was very happy. This was something that couldn't be bought even if one wanted to. There were only 2 dragons left in the world, and both of them had been slain. Little White Tiger smiled brightly at the success of his extortion. However, when he raised his head, he saw her brother. "Brother," she called out softly. "Brother Tiger." Chu Feng also called out politely. Little White Tiger's eyes widened. This brat was too scary. He had only known his sister for a short period of time. How did he know his identity from his sister? This was definitely a playboy. He was also a master among masters. He had to send him flying with a slap. Otherwise, his sister would be in danger. "I'm warning you. If you dare to touch my sister, I will smash you into 8 pieces." Little White Tiger threatened. Chu Feng understood what was going on. He smiled and didn't refute. He quietly listened to Little White Tiger's warnings and threats. Lu Shiyun, on the other hand, was embarrassed and angry. She shouted, "Brother, hurry up and go on a blind date." "It's not what you think." "What do you mean, not what I think?" "This brat is obviously not a good person. His eyes were glowing when he looked at you. I noticed a long time ago. Don't stop me. I need to take him to a quiet place to talk about life's ideals," Little White Tiger said. Lu Shiyun was speechless. If she really took Demon King Chu away, who would be the one to talk about life's ideals? She didn't want Chu Feng to laugh at her. She directly punched her brother and threatened, "Hurry up and go on a blind date. I'll tell you what's going on later. Otherwise, I'll shout that Little White Tiger is here." Little White Tiger's cheeks were streaming with tears. He felt that this brat was too hateful. His methods were frighteningly clever. He was truly a good-for-nothing. Something interesting seems to be happening over there. Let's go and take a look. The Black Bear's grandson, Xiong Kuan, was tall and sturdy. That girl in the white shirt and pants is too outstanding. It seems that she chased away another man for the sake of one. Let's go and take a look. Hu Xing also had a smile on his face. His eyes were long and narrow, and his light golden hair was draped over his chest and back. He looked very confident and at ease. They had been staying in Shuntian all this time. They were quite satisfied with the colorful life here. They would definitely try to get in touch with anything new. It was precisely because they heard that this blind date was special and that the participants were all high-quality bachelors and beauties that they decided to join in the fun. "Beautiful lady, let's get to know each other. I'm Xiong Kuan." Xiong Kuan introduced himself and praised Lu Shiyun, saying that she was beautiful. "Damn your grandpa." Chu Feng leaned sideways and rubbed his forehead with his hand. He didn't want to look at them. He had actually run into these people. If these big mouths were to go around shouting that Demon King Chu was here for a blind date, he would definitely lose face among the beast race. If this was any other place, he would definitely send them flying with a single kick. But here, Chu Feng didn't flare up. He didn't look at them directly. Fortunately, he was wearing a mask and had long since restrained his aura. Hu Sheng's mouth was even sweeter than before. He greeted Lu Shiyun from the side with a face full of smiles. He was quite witty and charming. After chatting for a while, Xiong Kuan had already started to brag. He said, "We are all mutants. You might not have heard of us, but I have a good brother named Chu Feng. You should have heard of him, right? He's my little brother." In a corner, Chu Feng was speechless. He was still pretending to be dead. Chapter 207. Lu Shiren's clothes were clean and tidy. She already had a sweet and youthful appearance. Now that she heard Xiong Kuen's shameless boasting, her clear eyes immediately widened. Then, she smiled into the shape of a crescent moon. The corners of her rosy lips were slightly raised, giving off a mischievous look. Xiong Kuen's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He himself was a big and burly man, but he just happened to like this kind of young and lively girl dressed in white. He didn't like strong female warriors among the beasts. "I'll bring you to see Demon King Chu some other day. When the time comes, you'll believe me. Even though he's famous outside, he's still my little brother." Xiong Kuen's bragging was getting out of hand. The main reason was that he felt that this white-clothed woman was too pleasing to the eye. Every frown and smile of hers was so moving and in line with his thoughts. It made his soul leave his body, and his tone became more and more arrogant. Hu Sheng and the others had a guilty conscience. What if Demon King Chu heard of this? Fortunately, the Demon King probably wouldn't come to such an occasion. Bullshit! Xia Qinyu pulled Jiang Luotian over and stood not too far away. She curled her lips. Although she couldn't say that she knew everything about Chu Feng, it wasn't that far off. After all, many things had happened between them. When Xiong Kuen heard this, he could not take it anymore. He turned around and revealed a look of shock. This was because an extremely pure-looking young woman had arrived. "Sister, I'm not lying. If you don't believe me, you can come with me to see Demon King Chu some other day," Xiong Kuen said. At the same time, he felt that this woman was somewhat familiar. In fact, they had met before. Of course, he was too unlucky to be suppressed by Chu Feng at the same time as a group of beasts. He lay limp on the ground like a kowtowing bug. Because he was being suppressed, it was difficult for him to raise his head and look at her carefully. Therefore, he only had a quick glance at Xia Qinyu, so he didn't recognize her at all. Especially today, Xia Qinyu was wearing a pair of blue contact lenses. Her eyes were especially big, and they were shining like sapphires. It was very strange, and Xiong Kuen couldn't recognize her. Xia Qinyu was very innocent at the moment. She didn't even think of a group of mutants. She didn't even suspect that there would be mutants in this kind of blind date. "Sure, I'll go with you another day." Xia Qinyu's smile was very bright. She felt that it would be very interesting to call Demon King Chu out and have him go on dates with these people. "All right, it's settled then." Xiong Kuen laughed out loud and strode towards Xia Qinyu. He wanted to exchange numbers with Xia Qinyu so that they could keep in touch in the future. Beside her, Jiang Luotian's hair stood on end. Her best friend didn't recognize Xiong Kuen, but she was different. She immediately realized that these people were masked beasts. Not only did she have a face that could topple cities, but her mind was also very meticulous. She had always been intelligent and could be said to have a photographic memory. At this moment, Goddess Jiang was having a headache and felt very guilty. She tilted her head and changed her posture. She was like an ostrich that was about to plunge headfirst into the ground. She was no longer as elegant as before and deliberately made herself look ugly. As for his face, it was naturally impossible for him to look at Xiong Kuen. How unlucky, Jiang Luotian muttered in her heart. If this group of beasts recognized her and spread the news, it would be terrible. Jiang Luotian was looking for her aunt, but she was nowhere to be found. Then, she noticed a familiar face, which made her feel even more unlucky. She knew Lu Shiren, and this was not the first time they had met. They had even talked when they were fighting the white snake in Taiyang Mountain. "Let's go," she whispered to Xia Qinyu. She felt that this place was too dangerous to stay. Fortunately, there was still some distance between them and Lu Shiren. Xiong Kuen was the only one who had come over. The others might not have noticed her yet. Soon, Hu Sheng also came over. His light golden hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were long and narrow. He gracefully bowed to Xia Qinyu and said, "Miss, you are so beautiful tonight. You are even more beautiful than the bright moon in the sky." Is that so? Xia Qianyu was immediately overjoyed. She looks familiar. Hu Sheng came closer and was slightly startled. That day, he was also suppressed to the ground and couldn't even lift his head. Therefore, he still couldn't recognize this woman. Jiang Luoshan was very nervous. She wanted to leave because she knew that Hu Sheng was much smarter than Xiong Kuan. He would most likely recognize her. Now, she regretted coming here. How could she run into a group of acquaintances? This was too unlucky for her. She didn't want to be in the headlines tomorrow. Two beautiful ladies, this way please. I have some friends that I can introduce to you. Hu Sheng invited Xia Qianyu and Jiang Luoshan to come over. Sure, Xia Qianyu happily agreed. She wanted to go over and listen to their bragging. She found this group of liars very interesting. No, let's go. Jiang Luoshan pinched Xia Qianyu. Don't be silly. Xia Qianyu pushed her hand away with a smile and pulled her forward. Jiang Luoshan was dumbfounded. Who was messing around? This was not a joke. If she was exposed, she would die a horrible death. She decided to use the power of the mutants to take Xia Qianyu away. However, a pair of bright eyes stared at her. Lu Shiyun was stunned at first, but then a brilliant smile appeared on the corners of her mouth. She giggled and quickly walked over. She hugged one of Mo Tinga's arms and enthusiastically invited her. Jiang Luoshan pinched Lu Shiyun's small waist and said, "Let go of me. I will give you a dragon bone bead later." What are you talking about? I don't understand. Lu Shiyun was smiling. 2 beads. I really can't give you any more. I asked someone to pay a huge price to get a few beads from Kunlun. Jiang Luoshan whispered. She pinched Lu Shiyun's soft waist again. Lu Shiyun glanced at Jiang Luoshan with her big eyes. She didn't hesitate to pinch Jiang Luoshan's slender waist. She rolled her eyes at Jiang Luoshan and whispered, "Unless it's a whole dragon bone bracelet." No, Jiang Luoshan refused. "I don't care." Lu Shiyun extorted. Jiang Luoshan retorted, "Little white tiger, don't think that I can't deal with you. If you keep causing trouble, I will hire a group of reporters and tell them that you like women. You know that I have a lot of media resources. Marry that innocent big-eyed girl of yours to my brother." Lu Shiyun bargained. "No way. Marriage is freedom. If you keep causing trouble, everyone in the city will know that you love your brother, father, and women. You're talking nonsense." "Yes, I'm talking nonsense." What was going on? Chu Feng continued to play dead. The 2 girls were extorting each other and communicating telepathically. However, as a king-level expert, he could see through everything. "Miss, you look familiar to me." At this moment, Hu Sheng became suspicious. He looked at Jiang Luoshan. Even though she was not looking at him, he could still see through her. That was because this male fox had always been smart. He could sense that something was wrong. "Hey, you don't say. You do look familiar. She looks like my little brother's woman," Xiong Kuan said in a carefree manner. "Who's your little brother?" Lu Shiyun's smile was so sweet that Xiong Kuan was almost drunk. He opened his mouth and said, "Chu Feng." Jiang Luoshan's eyes shone like a sharp sword as she stared at Lu Shiyun. Xia Qianyu also spoke up, "Don't talk nonsense. How can my good sister have anything to do with that unlucky demon king Chu? I'm just saying that she looks like my little brother's woman. Her name is Jiang Luoshan." "Wait, the more I look at her, the more she looks like her." Xiong Kuan was too careless to react. He was still surprised and said, "She really does look like her." This might be the nature of their race. The Black Bear bloodline was this careless. At the same time, it was also because he did not think that the national goddess Jiang Luoshan would come here for a blind date. Beside him, Hu Sheng wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He was now 100% sure that this woman was Jiang Luoshan. "If you keep talking nonsense, don't blame us for being impolite," Xia Qianyu threatened. "Hey, you want me talk? Let me tell you, my little brother's girlfriend is much more famous than you guys. Don't be angry." Xiong Kuan was still trying to argue. "Huh?" Lu Shiyun couldn't stop laughing. Jiang Luoshan's white forehead was full of black lines. She didn't want to stay any longer. She wanted to leave immediately. However, Lu Shiyun was hugging her arm tightly, not willing to let go. It seemed that they were quite intimate. Not far away, Chu Feng was sitting there, looking at them with the back of his head. He felt like he had seen a ghost. He had run into a stupid black bear, and now he had run into Jiang Luotian and the white tiger cub. Don't talk nonsense. Hu Sheng stopped Xiong Kuan. He was scared out of his wits because he was worried that Jiang Luotian would go to Chu Feng and tell on him. From what he remembered, this national goddess had an ambiguous relationship with Chu Feng. Why? Xiong Kuan was puzzled. Goddess Jiang has nothing to do with Chu Feng. Even if she does, they're just friends. Hu Sheng was wiping the cold sweat off his forehead as he tried to organize his words. He did not want to offend Jiang Luotian. Xiong Kuan argued, "That's not right, old Hu. You were the one who speculated that Jiang Luotian and Demon King Chu had an ambiguous relationship. They must be lovers." At this moment, Jiang Luotian's eyes were about to spit fire. These words were said right in front of her face. Who knew what these people would say behind her back? Hu Sheng's face turned green. He grabbed Xiong Kuan and said, "Shut up." "Why?" Xiong Kuan was not convinced. "That's because of Jiang Luotian." Hu Sheng whispered. "What?" Xiong Kuan was dumbfounded. At this moment, Jiang Luotian's murderous aura was boiling. She said, "I'm warning you. No one is allowed to say a word about what happened here today. Also, I repeat, I have nothing to do with Chu Feng. If you dare to talk behind his back, don't blame me for being impolite." Hu Sheng nodded his head to show that he understood. Xiong Kuan's ability to steer with the wind was not bad. He immediately changed his words and said righteously, "That's right, Goddess Jiang. How can that brat, Chu Feng, be worthy of you? He has nothing to do with you." Chu Feng was still playing dead in the distance. However, in his heart, he had already beaten Xiong Kuan 180 times. Lu Shiyun's smile was extremely sweet. Her big eyes kept glancing at Chu Feng in the corner. Xiong Kuan felt that he had lost face. He said to Lu Shiyun, "It was all a misunderstanding just now. But that brat Chu Feng is really my little brother." Even now, he was still reluctant to admit it. "What do you think of Xiong Kuan's words?" Lu Shiyun asked Jiang Luotian. At this moment, Jiang Luotian felt that something was wrong. She said, "What do you want now?" She was very vigilant. "Hey, don't play dead." Lu Shiyun walked over to Chu Feng with light and graceful steps. She patted Chu Feng's shoulder, who had the back of his head facing the crowd. "This guy looks a little familiar," Xiong Kuan said. Chapter 208. Hu Sheng's pupils constricted and his scalp went numb. The roots of his hair stood on end, and his originally soft golden hair became fluffy. He could not help but want to run away. However, when he thought of this person's abilities, he completely extinguished the thought. As for Xiong Kuan, he was on the verge of tears because no one had gone as far as he did. Just now, he kept on bragging about how Chu Feng was his little brother. Now, the main character was right in front of him, turning around to look at him. Xiong Kuan felt goosebumps all over his body, and his whole body stiffened. "Chu! Demon King, no, God Chu!" Xiong Kuan revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. He stammered as he looked at the young figure in front of him. How could he be so miserable? Xiong Kuan roared in his heart. Why did he have to run into this guy every time? He really wanted to curse at his bad luck. "I thought I heard you say I'm your little brother." Chu Feng's eyes were clear and bright as he looked at Xiong Kuan. Even with the mask covering his face, his acquaintances could still recognize him at a glance. Xiong Kuan wanted to cry. 2 days ago, his grandfather, the Black Bear, had specifically told him not to cause trouble. Now that Demon King Chu had returned from Mount Kunlun, he was told to watch his big mouth and not to mess with his father and grandfather. In the end, only 2 days had passed, and he had offended Demon King Chu. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. "God Chu, I was wrong." Xiong Kuan almost cried. Not far away, Xia Qinyu was dumbfounded. Not long ago, she was still joking that she would not be so unlucky to run into Demon King Chu, but now, she had run into him again. She was speechless. How could it be so coincidental? This was too ridiculous. Jiang Luotian was also dumbfounded. Her red lips slightly opened, revealing her pearly white teeth. Her beautiful eyes were wide open, and she found it hard to believe. "What the hell?" she mumbled in a low voice. How could she run into this guy everywhere she went? She felt a little dizzy, especially when she recalled Xiong Kuen's words. She felt like she was about to go crazy. Hu Sheng, Xiong Kuen, and the other beasts had been talking about her behind her back. It was not a big deal for them to say such outrageous things in front of her face. Who would have thought that Chu Feng was also there? Moreover, he was playing dead and listening to everything without saying a word. Jiang Luoshan's creamy skin alternated between green and white. She felt that this was too embarrassing, especially when she thought of Chu Feng standing there with his back to them, pretending to be stupid. She became even angrier. Was he just hiding from her and watching her make a fool of herself? Jiang Luoshan glared at Chu Feng. This guy was too shameless, too evil. However, at this time, her best friend Xia Qinyu revealed a suspicious expression because she felt that it was too much of a coincidence. She murmured in a low voice, "Luoshan, don't tell me you and him arranged to meet here?" Jiang Luoshan was stunned at first, but then she was so angry that her face turned red. She pinched the soft flesh on Jiang Luoshan's waist. This sister was actually suspecting her. Soon, she knew where the problem was. She had definitely been sold by her clansmen. Her aunt was clearly not herself today. She insisted on bringing her here. Bodhi Biogenetics must have received news that Demon King Chu was coming here for a blind date. Recently, Bodhi Biogenetics had been paying extra attention to Chu Feng. They wanted to rope him in. Her uncle had even tried to probe her, asking if Chu Feng and her were really like the rumors said. Thinking of this, Jiang Luoshan clenched her teeth and said, "Demon King Chu, you're really something. You actually came here for a blind date." She was really angry. She felt that it was all this guy's fault, causing Bodhi Biogenetics clansmen to plot against her. How refreshing. You came here for a blind date, and you still have the nerve to criticize me? You're the national goddess, yet you're here to hunt. What's wrong with a good young man like me coming here for a blind date? Sometimes, Chu Feng's mouth was really annoying. It could even be compared to Xiong Kuen's big mouth. The only difference was that he had the strength and confidence. Jiang Luoshan was quite angry. She had never been able to calm down after meeting this guy. Every time she met him, she felt extremely unlucky. Got a misfortune. Finally, she spat out these two words. This was her most direct feeling. Ever since she met Chu Feng, she had never been able to get what she wanted. Lu Shiyun was smiling sweetly at the side. It was obvious that she was rejoicing in Chu Feng's misfortune. "Little white tiger, I heard that you're quite a glutton. Back in Taiying Mountains, you were tricked into eating some dirty mutton skewers." In the end, Lu Shiyun's sweet smile froze on her face. She stared at Jiang Luoshan and then shot a murderous glare at Chu Feng. That incident was too embarrassing. Not far away, Xiong Kuen, Hu Sheng, and the others were retreating. They wanted to sneak away. "Stop!" Chu Feng's expression was unkind. He stared at them with a profound gaze. "Who said you could leave?" After hearing Chu Feng's cold words, the group was immediately frightened. This was the famous demon King Chu. They had been too complacent before. Even Jiang Luoshan and Lu Shiyun were shaken. Chu Feng was releasing king-level energy waves. He was giving off an invisible, terrifying aura. Only now did they realize that this was not the Chu Feng of the past. Now he was a true king-level expert. They couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Xia Qinyu felt even more guilty. Before, she could go against Chu Feng. But now, she remembered that he had participated in the Western expedition, slaughtered a dragon, and even had something to do with the destruction of the Holy See. Naturally, her face became stiff. "Your grandpa told me to take care of you. I think it's better to roast you." Chu Feng stared at Xiong Kuen and said. This tall and sturdy black bear spirit felt a chill run down his spine. He was shivering from head to toe. Hu Sheng and the others were no exception. That was because they knew this man's style of doing things. He loved to roast king-level entities. It was rumored that he was the one who created the gourmet rankings. "Immortal Chu, spare me. I won't do it again. My grandpa said that he is your sworn brother. In terms of seniority, you are my senior." Xiong Kun rushed over with a swoosh sound. His face was covered in tears and snot. He bowed to Chu Feng and apologized. He was truly frightened. As far as he knew, Chu Feng was especially fond of bear paws. Back in Jerusalem, this man had roasted a white bear king and steamed its paws. He had given it a very high rating on the gourmet rankings. Hu Sheng and the others were also intimidated by Chu Feng's king-level energy. They almost fell to the ground. Their faces were pale, and they were trembling. Seeing Xiong Kun on the verge of collapsing, Chu Feng waved his hand and said, "Forget it." He was just trying to scare this guy. After all, he had a good relationship with the Black Bear King. How could he really roast his grandson? He couldn't do such a thing. After he retracted his king-level energy, everyone present heaved a sigh of relief. They had felt too stifled just now. Even Jiang Luoshan felt it. She sighed inwardly. This guy was really oppressive when he was serious. He was even more powerful than the disciples of Buddha from Bodhi biogenetics. She knew that Chu Feng had risen to prominence and was valued by all the major powers. They didn't dare to neglect him and were trying to get close to him. At that moment, a beautiful figure walked over from the distance. She was wearing a long black dress and was extremely tall. Her beautiful hair danced in the wind, and her eyes shone with a divine light. Although she was wearing a mask, everyone could feel her powerful aura. It was as if a queen had appeared on the stage. Chu Feng's heart trembled. He knew that it was most likely because he had released a strand of king-level energy just now. It had attracted the attention of this peerless master who was in a strange state. The undead Phoenix King walked over gracefully and looked down at the people around her. Chu Feng didn't say anything. He turned around and walked away. This guy seems to be quite popular with women. Xia Qianyu was surprised. Even she had noticed that the queen in the black dress was heading towards Chu Feng. Jiang Luoshan and Lu Shiyun were also surprised. Who was that woman? How could she make Chu Feng so afraid? At this moment, Xiong Kun, Hu Sheng, and the rest felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. Now that the Devil King was no longer in front of them, they all felt much more relaxed. Little white tiger, is that bracelet on your wrist made from a dragon's horn? Jiang Luoshan was surprised. Her eyes were burning with passion. She grabbed Lu Shiyun's hand and wanted to take a closer look. "Don't touch it. It's mine." Lu Shiyun moved away from her. "How did you get it?" Jiang Luoshan was surprised. She was indeed jealous. There were only 2 dragons in this world, and they were both killed by the people of Kunlun. Not to mention Dragon's Horn, even a bracelet made from dragon's bone was hard to come by. She had spent a lot of effort to get her hands on one, but it was not the most important part of the frontal bone. Speaking of which, only the frontal bone and the dragon's horn contained a rich and mysterious energy that could keep people young forever. That was because the dragon race was on par with the gods and the legends. If the most important part of the dragon's bone was made into a bracelet, the effect would be beyond the imagination of mortals. Now, Jiang Luoshan found out that Little White Tiger had a bracelet made from the most important part of a dragon's body. Soon, she figured it out. She asked, "Chu Feng gave it to you? I didn't expect him to be so nice to you. Is he chasing after you, or have you fallen in love with him?" Lu Shiyun was quite calm and collected. She didn't fall for Mo Tinga's provocation. She even deliberately raised her chin. Dressed in snow-white robes, she looked as proud as a swan. She said, "I'm loved by everyone. Flowers bloom when they see me. I'm a gift from others. I'm not like someone who only has a few broken bones." After she finished speaking, she raised her chin and left in a dashing manner. Jiang Luoshan looked at Lu Shiyun's back. She wanted to rob Little White Tiger. "Who are you? Why do I know you so well?" The immortal Phoenix King stood in front of Chu Feng and asked directly. She could speak Eastern language. It was the first time she had spoken that night. Her voice was very pleasant. "Let's find a place to talk later," Chu Feng said. In his eyes, Lu Shiyun was a very dangerous and powerful person. It was very likely that she had lost part of her memory. He couldn't provoke her here. They needed to find a place with no one around to talk. Okay. The immortal Phoenix King was straightforward. She nodded and walked away. At that moment, it was time for the matchmaking session. What surprised Chu Feng the most was that he was always together with Jiang Luoshan when they were divided into groups. Jiang Luoshan finally understood. This was the work of Bodhi biogenetics. She had been sold by her people today. Everything was arranged. She was both annoyed and uncomfortable because her good friend, Xia Qianyu, was looking at them with a strange expression on her face. She didn't even need to think to know that her best friend was probably guessing that she might really be entangled with Chu Feng and that their relationship was ambiguous and complicated. Chu Feng, you were forced to come here for a matchmaking session, right? I think it's your parents' will. Not long ago, you were rumored to be dead. It really scared them. They want you to get married as soon as possible. Jiang Luoshan was very smart. She immediately guessed the reason why Chu Feng was here. What are you trying to say? Chu Feng frowned. In fact, the two of them were supposed to be in the middle of an interactive session. However, they were not playing games. Instead, they were whispering to each other. It's simple. Let's work together and help you get through this. Jiang Luoshan's smile could make 100 flowers pale in comparison. Her red lips were seductive, and her big eyes were intelligent. You're really that kind? Chu Feng was surprised. He didn't believe it. Then, he said, don't tell me you really want to be my wife. What wife? That sounds so bad. Jiang Luoshan wanted to punch him. She thought for a while and said, give me a dragon horn bracelet and a dragon skull bracelet, and I'll help you get through this. As a woman, even Goddess Jiang couldn't help but like dragon bone ornaments that were comparable to God's bones and could maintain one's youthfulness. She wanted to get her hands on them. According to her, she could settle Chu Feng's parents. You want to go home with me? Chu Feng had a strange look on his face. Don't even think about it. I'll think of a more effective way, Jiang Luoshan said. Chu Feng pondered for a while and gradually figured out her cunning plan. She was doing this to deal with Bodhi biogenetics. She also wanted to give the other forces the wrong impression that Chu Feng had joined Bodhi biogenetics. She wanted to get some dragon horn bracelets for herself. It was impossible for her to feed the tiger with her own body. Do I look like a stupid tiger to you? Chu Feng gave her a sidelong glance. He didn't wait for her to say anything else and turned to leave. We can negotiate, Jiang Luoshan said. After that, Chu Feng sat with Xiong Kuan and Hu Sheng. They were quite nervous, but after a while, they started to relax. Chu Feng learned some things from their mouths. Just this evening, some famous mountains in the east had been conquered and conquered by their masters. This made him think that the world was going to change again. Instead of going to Mount Kunlun to share the fortune with so many kings, he might as well try to conquer a famous mountain himself. However, he knew that there was something strange about those places. Otherwise, they would have been conquered long ago. Should I take the immortal Phoenix King with me to conquer the mountains and become the master of a mountain? He pondered. He was lost in thought. Time flew by quickly, and the blind date was about to end. At this time, Jiang Luoshan came to discuss cooperation with him. Chu Feng shook his head and refused. Let's go. The immortal Phoenix King arrived. She took off her mask and threw it on the ground. She looked at Chu Feng and urged him to leave. She wanted to have a talk with him. This made people gasp in surprise. According to the rules of the blind date, unless there was a special feeling like love at first sight, no one would take off their mask. The queen in black dress took off her mask. Who is that man? Very soon, people's discussions became quiet again because the undead Phoenix King's true appearance was indeed excessively beautiful. Many people were stunned as they stared at her flawless appearance in a daze. Chu Feng stood up and walked out with the immortal Phoenix King. Jiang Luoshan was in a daze. Who was that woman in black dress? Her aura was so strong that even she felt pressured. That mysterious woman was not only cold, but also a king-level warrior. Luoshan, why do I feel like that woman stole your thunder? Xia Qinyu came over and said mysteriously, what are you talking about? Jiang Luoshan pinched her waist. Outside, Chu Feng's mother, Wang Jing, had been waiting for a long time. She was surprised to see her son walking out with an extremely beautiful woman in black dress. Chapter 209. The undead Phoenix King was 175 centimeters tall. She wore a black dress that accentuated her tall and slender figure. Her skin was fair, like a snow lotus on an iceberg, cold and beautiful. Wang Jing was standing not far away. Her heart was filled with joy at the sight of such an impeccable daughter-in-law. When Chu Feng saw the smile on her face, he immediately knew what was going on. His body stiffened and his heart pounded. How should he introduce her? The person beside him was a peerless expert with 6 severed shackles. If he were to tell Wang Jing that this was the result of the night, she would be happy. But what about the immortal Phoenix King? A single mishap could cause an entire building to collapse with a single slap. Mom! Chu Feng hurried to greet Wang Jing as soon as he saw her. It was better to take the initiative to avoid his mother's frightening questions. However, he had underestimated Wang Jing's enthusiasm. He walked past her and went straight to the immortal Phoenix King. He kept on praising her, saying how charming she was. She was like a peerless beauty who had just walked out of a painting. Wang Jing completely ignored Chu Feng and kept on praising the immortal Phoenix King. The more she looked, the more satisfied she was. Chu Feng wanted to shout, "My dear mother, stop trying to get close to me. If I really have such a daughter-in-law, you won't be able to stand it. She can collapse a mountain with a single kick." Contrary to his expectations, although the undead Phoenix King was cold and elegant, she was not arrogant at all. After hearing such praise, she actually revealed a smile, as if ice and snow had melted. "You are also young and beautiful." Wang Jing felt as if she had eaten a ginseng fruit. She was extremely satisfied with this daughter-in-law. Chu Feng hurried forward and whispered, "Mom, we just met. Don't scare her with your enthusiasm. Let's go home first." He was actually afraid that Wang Jing would be frightened by the immortal Phoenix King. It would be terrifying if the latter revealed her peerless aura or divine light from her phoenix eyes. "All right, you youngsters continue to chat. I'll go back first." Chu Feng heaved a sigh of relief after Wang Jing left. At this moment, Xiong Kuan and Hu Sheng happened to be walking over. Chu Feng saw them and immediately grabbed them to arrange a quiet place for them to drink tea and chat. The few beasts nodded. This was a small matter, so they naturally wouldn't keep Chu Feng waiting for too long. Lu Shiyun and her brother just happened to see this scene. White Tiger was immediately displeased. Not long ago, this brat was chatting passionately with his sister, and now he was flirting with the black dress queen. He wanted to go over and teach this playboy a lesson. "Brother, you want to talk about your dreams with her? Let me tell you, don't take the initiative to get beaten up." Lu Shiyun glanced at him and said, "Damn." White Tiger said disdainfully, "He's Chu Feng." Lu Shiyun said lightly. "Ah." The White Tiger was stupefied. It stood in place, its body rigid. Xia Qinyu and Jiang Luoshan also walked out of the skyscraper. "Luoshan, with your looks and charm, how can you concede defeat? What's so great about the black dress queen? Since she dares to snatch my love away, you should go up and fight." "Xia Qinyu, are you trying to piss me off?" Jiang Luoshan had a perfect figure, but now she wanted to use force against her best friend. A murderous light flashed in her eyes. At the same time, she was also looking for her aunt who had sold her out. The interior of the Yuanming tea house was decorated in an antique style. From the tables and chairs, to the windows, to the partitions, it was a very quiet and elegant place. Chu Feng and the immortal Phoenix King were sitting across from each other. A beautiful girl was sitting in front of them. Her skillful and elegant movements were very pleasing to the eye. I don't remember what happened in the past. The undead Phoenix King frankly told him about her situation. Indeed, she had lost her memory. She didn't even know how she came to the east. She was unconscious in the mountains and was rescued by a female mutant who brought her to Shuntian. The female mutant was the organizer of this blind date. She was running her own business, and at the same time, she signed up for the immortal Phoenix King. She wanted to enrich her monotonous life. The immortal Phoenix King didn't lose her power. She was still as powerful as ever, but she had temporarily lost her memory. No one knew whether it was because of the battle or because of the Nirvana process. "Have you forgotten everything in the past?" "I only have a vague memory. I think I was living in a volcano, and the lava was boiling everywhere. The immortal Phoenix King fell into deep thought. Chu Feng was moved. As expected of Phoenix bloodline, she actually lived in a volcano. To others, that was a land of death. We have indeed met before. He didn't hide anything and told her of her true identity. In the blink of an eye, the entire tea house began to tremble. King-level energy fluctuations were spreading out, terrifying everyone's souls and causing their hearts to palpitate. Even their souls were trembling. Relax. Chu Feng opened his mouth and released his energy to block the incoming attack. The black-robed lady's hair was fluttering in the wind. Her beautiful face was becoming increasingly cold, and her phoenix-like eyes were emitting cold lightning, illuminating the entire tea house. Her black dress fluttered even though there was no wind, accentuating the curves of her beautiful figure. However, she was also in a dangerous situation. "The black dragon is dead?" she asked. "Yes," Chu Feng answered, but then he added, "Schiller is still alive. He is the real culprit." He reckoned that Schiller must hate him to death. After all, the Holy Sea's divine city was destroyed in his hands, and he wanted to drag the immortal Phoenix King down with him to deal with the enemy. Schiller, the immortal Phoenix King whispered. She would remember this name. The terrifying energy converged back into her snow-white skin, and everything returned to normal. At this time, Xiong Kun, Hu Sheng, and the others who were waiting in the other tea house were all pale with fright. The pressure, just now, was too terrifying. As for the little girl in the tea house, she had already fainted. Although the immortal Phoenix King had lost her memory, she was still clear-minded. In order to verify her theory, she followed Chu Feng's instructions and searched for relevant information on the internet. Following that, the two had a secret discussion. When they left the tea house, the immortal Phoenix King smiled sweetly like a thawing iceberg. It was a rare radiance, causing Xiong Kun, Hu Sheng, and the others to stare blankly. "Thank you. In return, I can help you find a beautiful human girl to deal with your parents. Of course, if you really want this king to come and continue, I won't be too against it. I can help you." With that, she left gracefully. Her tall and beautiful figure disappeared into the night. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. Was this really what the immortal Phoenix King had said? This was a peerless expert with 6 severed shackles. She was originally cold and indifferent, but in the end, she was actually teasing him. This was not in line with her status. Chu Feng turned back and found that Xiong Kun, Hu Sheng, and the others were all dumbfounded. He immediately scolded. "What are you looking at? Get lost." Of course, his old face was also unnatural. After all, he was the one being teased just now. Facing the immortal Phoenix King, he couldn't really retaliate. Chu Feng didn't stay for long and immediately left. Immortal Chu is too valiant. That's a legendary immortal phoenix, a peerless expert. Boss Chu actually has an ambiguous relationship with her. Is he trying to defy the heavens? Xiong Kun, Hu Sheng, and the others were all filled with fanaticism and admiration. If this news were to spread out, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. However, these people didn't dare to speak carelessly. They had long since been warned by Chu Feng that the immortal Phoenix King, who had disappeared for many days, had reappeared. They had to keep it a secret. During the following 2 days, the major corporations continuously tried to rope in Chu Feng. However, he didn't respond to any of them and simply stayed at home leisurely. It was just that Wang Jing would occasionally urge him to communicate with her future daughter-in-law. This gave him a headache. Bodhi Biogenetics has conquered Mount Putuo? This news shocked Chu Feng quite a bit. One had to know that Mount Putuo was one of the 4 famed mountains of Buddhism. It was also known as the Buddhist Kingdom of the Sea and the Southern Sea Sacred Territory. It was one of the most important divine mountains in the world and was extremely extraordinary. After the upheavals, an indescribable domain had enveloped the entire mountain. Moreover, terrifying creatures were roaming about. Some kings who went to attack were either killed or wounded. Chu Feng decided to find Hu Sheng, Xiong Kun, and the others to find out more about the situation. They were very well informed. These people had braced themselves to attend the meeting because they were a bit afraid of this young master. Originally, they were planning to leave Shantian and not mingle in this city anymore. However, Chu Feng informed them in advance that they shouldn't go anywhere in the near future and would help him with some matters. This caused them to feel extremely distressed and apprehensive. Fortunately, Chu Feng didn't want them to do anything dangerous. He only wanted them to gather information. Bodhi biogenetics is indeed very powerful. They have a total of 2 disciples. One of them fought with the white snake and almost died. He disappeared for a long time to recuperate and finally recovered. The other one is even more terrifying. It is said that he has severed 5 shackles and is an old monk over 100 years old. They were able to conquer Mount Puta not only because they used some of the most advanced firearms, but also because they invited some beast race experts to help them. As for which beast race experts, Hu Sheng and Xiong Kun didn't know. However, there were rumors that Bodhi biogenetics had come into contact with the peacock race. The outside world guessed that they would join forces to attack a certain famed mountain. The Celestial Biology Institute, the Preaching Research Institute, and the Extraterrestrial Research Institute are also attacking the famed mountains they have their eyes on. All of them are close to success, Hu Sheng informed. Chu Feng revealed an odd expression. While he was fighting in the West, these major powers in the East had made astonishing progress. They really couldn't be underestimated. In truth, the reason why he was so concerned was because he also wanted to take action. He wanted to conquer a divine mountain of his own. One had to know that some places weren't necessarily inferior to Mount Kunlun or the pilgrimage grounds. More importantly, a divine mountain of his own would allow him to toss and turn as he pleased. He would be free and unfettered. Moreover, as the world recovered, he could borrow the rich vitality of the divine mountain to plant the seed in the stone box. Chu Feng felt that if he wanted to become stronger, he would have to find a suitable place for the seed to germinate. Only by conquering a famed mountain would he be able to do so. Right now, which mountains have the most abundant spiritual energy? Chu Feng asked. Of course, it's Mount Longhu, the ancestral court of Taoism. Xiong Kun cried out. But this mountain is too terrifying. It's the most difficult to conquer. Blood has dyed the stone steps red. Many kings have died there. Chapter 210. Jade waters and rosy clouds hide tigers and dragons. The heavenly paradise conceals the immortal court. Even though the Tao mausoleum is far away, the demons and devils still fear it. This was how the ancients described Mount Longhu. It was one of the ancestral courts of Taoism and had a high status. Chu Feng naturally wanted to ascend it. One of the ancestral grounds of Taoism was bound to undergo earth-shattering changes after the upheavals. How could this not attract his attention? As one of the origins of Taoism, there were bound to be peerless fortunes. According to the speculations of some major powers, it was not surprising to see the southern heavenly gate there. Hence, many parties had fought to the death to conquer this immortal mountain. Since ancient times, many legends and myths were related to Taoism. This was one of the most ancient places of Taoism, so it naturally attracted much attention. That was because it was connected to the legends and carried part of the origin of the immortal Tao. Chu Feng's eyes were filled with passion as he gazed towards the south. He really wanted to conquer this ancient immortal mountain. He wanted to know why Bodhi Biogenetics, the Preaching Research Institute, the Tonggu Alliance, and the other major powers had returned in defeat and what kind of dangers lay there. Unfortunately, Xiong Kun and Hu Sheng did not know that this involved the prestige and power of the major powers. They would not easily divulge this information. Brother-in-law, are you really going to attack this Mount of Tao? Xiong Kun's eyes were burning with passion. He consciously addressed Chu Feng as brother-in-law, following his grandfather in terms of seniority. After being beaten up several times in a row, he had completely lost his temper. Moreover, there were many thoughts in his mind. Since Demon King Chu was so powerful, he might be able to bask in his glory if he followed behind. Hu Sheng and the others were also excited. They too yearned for Mount Longhu. If they could follow behind Chu Feng and kill their way up, even a small portion would be enough to benefit them for the rest of their lives. They all knew that Mount Longhu was the ancestral court of Taoism and held a high position in the legends. Over 10 Beast Kings have died since a long time ago, and now there are even more. It is said that their blood has dyed the base of the mountain red. If you want to know more, you can go to a place where there are all kinds of news. Xiong Kun, Hu Sheng, and Lu Qing were no longer nervous when facing Chu Feng. Instead, they were full of hope as they told him everything they knew. Where? Chu Feng asked. Yuan Gu, Hu Sheng informed. What is this place? Chu Feng was suspicious. He had never heard of this place before. Hu Sheng informed him that the Primordial Academy was an extraordinary clubhouse. It was built with the joint investment of various major corporations, and its customers were usually evolved beings. Ordinary people couldn't enter. The upper echelons of the Tonggu Alliance, Preaching Research Institute, and Bodhi Biogenetics would all stay there when they came to Shantian. The Beast Kings and Bird Kings would also choose that place as their first choice when passing by. This place often has gatherings. Any news will spread from there, Xiong Kun said. Go. Chu Feng got up and had them lead the way. He wanted to take a look. Yuan Gu looked extremely grand from the outside, resembling an ancient palace. To be able to build such a building in a place like Shantian, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, it could only be said that the person behind it was extremely wealthy. There were 2 jade Qilin statues at the entrance, vivid and lifelike. They were placed here in a rather imposing manner. Above the main entrance was a bronze plaque with the words Primordial Ancient written on it. Apparently, Xiong Kun and Hu Sheng were frequent visitors here and were very familiar with the place. This place was truly huge. There were secluded courtyards, as well as public areas for mutants and beasts to interact with each other. Not far from here, there was a commotion. Chu Feng was astonished. It was as if he had entered a kingdom of monsters. Some of the beasts were not fully transformed. For example, some had wings on their backs, while others had horns on their heads. As for the mutants, there were even more of them. The place was bustling with noise and excitement. There were no ordinary people here, only evolved beings. Many areas were bustling with noise, and the fragrance of wine assailed the nostrils. Hu Sheng had already booked a room. Only after entering did Chu Feng realize that it was simply a huge palace with richly ornamented beams and painted rafters. It was spacious and bright. Brother-in-law, this is the ancient clubhouse's divine watchtower. It's one of the best rooms. Ordinary people won't be able to book it. Xiong Kun was immensely proud of himself. The few of them often came here, so they were given preferential treatment. Very well. Go and gather as much information as you can. I'll be waiting for you guys. Chu Feng didn't want to show his face in public, so everything was left to them. Very well. Brother-in-law, please wait here for a moment. You can take your time and enjoy your tea. Leave everything to us. Xiong Kun's enthusiasm had increased. That was because not long ago he had spoken to the Black Bear at Mount Kunlun and told him everything that had happened in the past few days. First, he was scolded by his grandfather, who told him not to court death. Then, he was reminded time and again that following Demon King Chu would definitely bring him benefits. Hu Sheng and Lu Qing were in a similar situation. They had all reported to their elders and found out that Demon King Chu was about to attack Mount Longhu. These kings were all shocked and warned them to hug on a Demon King Chu's thigh and follow him. These races all had a premonition that something big was about to happen. If Demon King Chu and the Undead Phoenix were to join hands, their power would be too great. Chu Feng was waiting here. He felt that the atmosphere was not bad. A small stove was heating up a pot of wine, filling the air with a rich fragrance. Everything was arranged in an old-fashioned style. He poured a cup of wine. It was amber in color and had a rich fragrance. These beasts really know how to enjoy themselves. He thought back to the time when he was fighting in the West. These fellows were drinking and making merry every day, participating in blind dates, etc. It was truly a carefree and comfortable life. Chu Feng even wondered if he was too stupid. He had been roaming the desolate mountains all day long. How could he be as carefree and happy as these people? However, he quickly shook his head. The world was about to undergo a great change. If he didn't make preparations, the situation would be dire. Whoever rose to power would live a better life. It was not hard to imagine that after the great change, a new batch of experts would rise to power. They would inevitably be accompanied by cruel bloodshed and slaughter. Those who couldn't keep up would be eliminated. Clean up properly. A king-level expert will be arriving soon. We can't afford to make any mistakes. A voice came from the neighboring hall. It was originally soundproof, but as an expert with 4 severed shackles, Chu Feng's hearing was exceedingly sharp. He could hear it clearly. Hurry up. If there's a problem, none of you will be able to bear the consequences. Oh, this time, it's an esteemed guest. We have to be careful when accompanying him. Apparently, 2 people of extraordinary status had arrived next door. They were personally supervising the attendants in cleaning up the hall. They were extremely cautious and cautious. Chu Feng poured himself a cup of wine and drank by himself. He could hear them even if he didn't want to. He was killing time indifferently. Not long after, he was surprised to find that the person over there had actually mentioned him. He didn't pay much attention to it first, but in the end, he put down his wine cup. It's not that I want to say this, but Demon King Chu is too arrogant. Our Preaching Research Institute has invited him many times and extended an olive branch to him, but he refused every single one of them. He's too insolent. Chu Feng listened quietly. He had indeed tactfully declined the invitations of those major corporations and told them that he wouldn't join any of them. Who would have thought that he would be hated? He sighed softly and shook his head. He thinks he's infallible. Does he really think he's invincible? Sooner or later, he'll fall. Ma Kwa sneered. Our Preaching Research Institute knows much more about the great changes than he does. We've always been respectful of the world. How could we be as arrogant as him? He'll die sooner or later, Chi Tong said. Chu Feng's expression turned cold when he heard this. These 2 had actually cursed him so viciously. Wasn't it just a tactful refusal? Not only were they dissatisfied, but they were also jealous of him. Preaching Research Institute. Chu Feng didn't think that he had anything to do with them, but he was baffled to be treated with such hostility. Sometimes, even if one didn't go looking for trouble, he would still be ambushed. I heard that the guest this time is extraordinarily powerful. After he came ashore, he wanted to challenge all the experts on land. Do you think he'll go for Chu Feng? Ma Kwa asked. Chu Feng was shocked. The king of the sea had come ashore. He had never thought that he would hear about such a big event here. My brother will definitely inform a guest. After all, Demon King Chu is too insensible. I'm sure he'll take this opportunity to teach him a lesson, Chi Tong said with a smile. Your brother, Chi Sheng, should be here soon, right? Chu Feng frowned. The Preaching Research Institute was not just any archaeology institute. It was a major corporation, and the Chi family was one of its important members. How could a direct descendant of the Chi family ask the guest of the sea to deal with him? Chu Feng's expression was indifferent. My brother has personally gone to welcome a guest called White Dragon. He has also invited Jiang Luoshin and Mu Tian. White Dragon? Oh my god, don't tell me he's a sea dragon? Could he be from the Dragon Palace? I don't know. Chu Feng's heart was stirred. A sea dragon had appeared in the sea. The so-called guest of the sea had alarmed the Preaching Research Institute, Bodhi Genetics, and Celestial Biology. Sigh, we can only stay here to welcome the guest of the White Dragon. It's really, don't underestimate the guest we're about to receive. His name is Xiaolan, an expert with 4 severed shackles. If it wasn't for the fact that he doesn't like formalities, he would have been received together with White Dragon. Chu Feng quietly sipped his wine and listened to their conversation. After a long time, the room next door suddenly became lively. The aura of a king-level entity filled the air. At the same time, laughter could be heard. The 2 men were welcoming the king-level expert from the sea, Xiaolan. Very soon, Xiaolan's voice was heard echoing through the hall, causing the walls to tremble. Let's not drink yet. I want to know if the man called Chu Feng is in the city. Xiaolan asked. Yes, he has returned recently, Ma Kuo replied. Oh, very good. Think of a way to invite him over. My big brother is quite interested in him. Xiaolan, the expert from the sea, said. I wonder what Brother White Dragon wants to do with him. Qiting chose his words carefully. Xiaolan said with a faint smile, My brother has heard that he is quite strong, so he wants to exchange pointers with him. All right, what if he accidentally kills him? In a fair fight like this, it shouldn't be a big deal, right? Ugh. Obviously, the two men were very surprised. Even though they were not happy with Chu Feng, they were still shocked to hear such news. What's wrong with that? How hypocritical. Qi Sheng has hinted to my brother that he wants to teach that so-called Demon King Chu a lesson. Xiaolan said disdainfully. Very well, we will arrange for him to exchange pointers with Brother White Dragon as soon as possible. Qi Tong said through gritted teeth. Since his elder brother Qi Sheng wanted to deal with Chu Feng and had asked the White Dragon to help him, how could he not cooperate? Chapter 211. The king-level entities from the ocean had all come ashore. It was hard to say how many experts had evolved in the ocean, because it was simply too vast. Chu Feng's eyes were deep as he drank in silence. He was thinking of many things. Could there really be a sea, and dragon palace? Could the immortal island and the Fusang tree have appeared? In the hall next door, Qi Tong and Ma Kuo were chatting happily with Xiaolan, who had come all the way from the Eastern Sea. Sorry for the disrespect. It turns out that Brother Xia has already severed his fourth shackle and can be considered a supreme king-level expert. His strength alone is no weaker than Demon King Chu. What a joke. What's so great about this Chu Feng? He's not necessarily stronger than Brother Xia, but he's so insolent, rejecting us time and time again. Come, let me offer a toast to Brother Xia. Today, we've drunk to our heart's content. Qi Tong and Ma Kuo had a deep prejudice against Chu Feng and were full of enmity when they mentioned Chu Feng. Xiaolan laughed heartily and exchanged toasts with them. At the same time, he was inquiring about the situation on the continent in detail. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. So many people wanted to rope him in and kept extending olive branches to him. How could he have the energy to attend all of them? He had politely declined them, but in the end, there were actually people who hated him. He really didn't know what to say. Was it him, Chu Feng, who was insolent, or were these people too arrogant and tyrannical? They were so hostile just because he didn't agree. Following which, his expression turned cold. These two people dared to insult him, not to mention not even a king-level expert. So what if they were a true king-level expert? Even those in charge of the Pre-Qin Research Institute wouldn't dare to be so impudent. During this period of time, he had killed many king-level entities, including the Jilin King and the Golden Lion King. Even the Vatican had been razed to the ground, intimidating all the other kings. He had just returned from a Western expedition and was now famous. How could these two people dare to mock him? At this time, Xiong Kuan and Hu Sheng had returned. They were about to speak, but were stopped by Chu Feng. How laughable. This Chu Feng actually dares to look down on us. Does he really think he's a peerless expert? Who does he think he is? Sooner or later, he will be taught a lesson and suffer an unexpected calamity. Qi Tong said happily in the palace next door. Ma Kuo also nodded and said, I'm looking forward to Brother White Dragon taking action and suppressing Demon King Chu. I really want to see his resentful expression after his defeat. Haha, does he really think he's invincible? The two of them laughed heartily and without restraint. Xiaolan looked at the two of them with a faint smile and said, You're thinking too much. If my brother, the White Dragon, were to make a move, he wouldn't even have a chance to live. He would be killed directly. Oh, wrong. I accidentally killed him in a fair duel. Qi Tong and Ma Kuo laughed and toasted Xiaolan again. In the room next door, Xiong Kuan, Hu Sheng, and the others' hearing wasn't as sharp as Chu Feng's, but they were still able to vaguely hear some of it. Their faces immediately changed. Let's go and take a look. Chu Feng stood up. Xiong Kuan, Hu Sheng, and Lu Qing all shuddered. They all knew this man's personality. He was not even afraid of the church, and he had even participated in the Western expedition. He was not even afraid of the powerful Western Alliance, not to mention the others. Xiong Kun knocked on the brass ring on the door, and soon a dissatisfied voice came from inside. Ma Kuo and Chi Tung had already ordered that no one should disturb them without their summons. Could it be that my brother is here? Chi Tung was doubtful, but he dared not complain anymore. However, when he came to open the door, he saw a burly young man. His face suddenly darkened, and he said, "Who are you? How dare you disturb my mood?" Xiong Kun glared at Chi Tung. He was fearless. He pushed Chi Tung aside and strode into the room. "How dare you?" Ma Kuo shouted. He had already walked into the room, glaring at Xiong Kun. However, he noticed that something was wrong with Chi Tung. After being pushed away, Chi Tung's face turned pale, but he didn't dare to scold Chi Tung. Soon, Ma Kuo's mind went blank. He also froze on the spot. He saw Chu Feng standing outside the door, and all the blood drained from his face. "Chu Feng!" At this moment, Chi Tung struggled to speak. His body was stumbling backward, and his pupils constricted in fear. Ma Kuo was also retreating. The two men's scalps were numb, and a chill ran down their spines. Their bodies tensed up. They had never thought that the person they had just mentioned would show up here. Xiong Kun and Hu Sheng invited Chu Feng in. They sneered at Chi Tung and Ma Kuo. These two were too bold. How dare they humiliate Demon King Chu behind his back? Chu Feng strode in, his face indifferent. "Brother Chu, I didn't know you were coming. Please forgive me for not going out to greet you." Chi Tung squeezed out a smile. His body was stiff, but he still managed to move half a step forward to greet Chu Feng. Slap! Chu Feng raised his hand and slapped Chi Tung's face. Chi Tung let out a blood-curdling scream. His mouth was full of blood, and his whole body was sent flying. Most of his teeth had fallen out in the process, and his whole body was smashed into the wall behind him. "Brother Chu, what are you doing?" Ma Kuo's face was pale. He was terrified. Slap! The next moment, his face was about to explode. His mouth was full of blood and teeth. His whole body was sent flying and smashed into the wall. The two men screamed and rolled on the ground. Not only had their teeth fallen out, but their mandibles were also fractured. The pain was unbearable. "How dare you humiliate me behind my back? Didn't your parents teach you anything?" Chu Feng looked down at them and said calmly. The two men on the ground were angry and humiliated, but they were also extremely afraid. How could they not be afraid of this Demon King Chu? If they had known that he was nearby, they would not have dared to humiliate him. However, they were still shocked and angry. Chu Feng did not put them in his eyes at all. He had directly said that their parents did not teach them well. Even if the king-level leader of the Preaching Research Institute was here, he would not dare to be so presumptuous in front of me. Chu Feng said coldly. Ma Kuo and Chi Tung felt as if cold water had been poured over their heads. They thought of Chu Feng's achievements. He had destroyed the Holy Sea's divine city and eaten the Western Dragon. He had faced the most powerful forces. He was indeed not afraid of the Preaching Research Institute. Their hearts were filled with bitterness and fear. They had been caught red-handed by Chu Feng. They're just two ants. How dare they humiliate my uncle behind his back? What a joke. Xiong Kun said. You brought this upon yourself. Hu Sheng shook his head. His slender eyes were glowing. He and Xiong Kun walked up and stomped on the two men. Crack! The sound of bones breaking was heard, followed by the miserable screams of Ma Kuo and Chi Tung. The two men were scared out of their wits. Was he trying to kill them? Within a moment, their bones were broken. They lay on the ground like two puddles of mud, unable to move. Demon King Chu. Only then did Xiaolan speak. He did not get up. He looked at Chu Feng with a strange expression on his face. He was tall and sturdy. His whole body was covered with a layer of dark red armor. The armor emitted a cold metallic luster. Even his head was protected by a dark red helmet. Only when Chu Feng looked at him did Xiaolan stand up. He was 2 meters tall and had an intimidating aura around him. 2 beams of divine light shot out from his eyes. Your brother, the White Dragon, wants to kill me? Chu Feng asked. It's a misunderstanding. My brother only wants to exchange pointers with you. He might not be able to control his fists and kicks well. It's normal for one of you to injure the other. Xiaolan smiled. You still don't want to admit it? We all heard it. Xiong Kuan said disdainfully. Oh, is that so? It's normal for experts to get injured or killed in a fight. Brother Chu, are you afraid? Xiaolan laughed. Then he retracted his smile and said, Why don't we exchange pointers first? He was very polite, but also very conceited. He knew that Chu Feng had only severed 4 shackles and was at the same level as him. He was very unconvinced. Chu Feng said, You're from the ocean. I've never met you before. Go and tell your big brother, the white dragon, not to attack after being provoked by a few words. Let's forget about today's matter. I don't want to make an enemy out of nothing. Xiaolan was unmoved. He said indifferently, Brother Chu, you think too much. Who do you think my brother is? How can Qi Sheng influence his will? My brother really wants to have a match with you. Is that so? Does that mean your brother is destined to fight with me? And if he defeats me, he'll kill me? Chu Feng asked. Accidents are bound to happen in any spar. No one can say for sure, Xiaolan said casually. Xiong Kun, Hu Sheng, and Lu Qing's eyes revealed a cold glint. This marine creature was truly insolent. Although Xiaolan's words were light and airy, they were actually quite tyrannical. Is that so? Since this battle is unavoidable, let's do it. Didn't you say you wanted to spar with me? Let's begin. Chu Feng said. Xiaolan laughed loudly and attacked with a loud rumble. He was as swift and fierce as lightning. His fist was aimed at Chu Feng's head, ruthless and decisive. Thump! Chu Feng raised his fist to meet the attack head-on. Xiaolan's fist suddenly burst forth with blazing lightning. It enveloped the entire area and was about to engulf Chu Feng. He was holding a bead in his hand. It was imbued with powerful lightning beams. This was where Xiaolan's confidence came from. Back in the sea, he had often killed his opponents in one strike. Xiong Kun, Hu Sheng, and the others cried out in alarm. As a beast race, they were extremely afraid of lightning. They felt as if they were facing divine punishment and felt their scalps go numb. They all knew that although Xiaolan looked like a crude person, he was actually quite ruthless. He had launched a sneak attack right from the get-go. He wanted to kill Chu Feng in one move. Chu Feng revealed a cold smile. His palm glowed, and with a loud rumble, lightning burst forth and broke the bead in Xiaolan's hand into pieces. Moreover, the lightning in his palm surged violently and pervaded the air, covering Xiaolan and causing him to tremble violently. Then he was sent flying. With a swoosh, a lightning spear appeared in Chu Feng's left hand and directly pierced into Xiaolan's body. With a loud bang, Xiaolan's chest exploded and his body was almost cut into 2. Only at this time did Xiaolan let out a blood-curdling scream. He was in incomparable pain and disbelief. The bead that could release lightning had actually been destroyed. Moreover, what shocked him the most was that Chu Feng's control of lightning and arcs was several times more powerful than his seed. Brother Chu is indeed powerful. I concede defeat and am far from being your match. I'm completely convinced, Xiaolan said. At this time, he had already revealed his true form. He was actually a gigantic lobster, more than 10 meters long and as thick as a water tank. He filled the entire courtyard. So, what's a fresh and tender lobster? Chu Feng revealed an odd expression as he stared at him. What are you trying to do? Xiaolan's body tensed up. He was very sharp and sensed that something was amiss. He cried out, The exchange is over. I've lost. You said it yourself. Death and injury are unavoidable in a spar. What do you think I'll do? At this point, Chu Feng raised his hand and a beam of energy shot out from his palm. With a puff, the lobster was cut into 2 halves. Xiaolan let out a blood-curdling scream. His vitality was extremely tenacious. Even with half of his body cut off, he wouldn't die immediately. He revealed a terrified expression and said, Brother Chu, you have to consider the consequences. There's no enmity between us. How about we just let this matter rest? It's too late. I've already given you a suggestion before. Since you've already taken action, there's no turning back. Chu Feng said. He knew that even if he let Xiaolan go, this lobster would still hold a grudge against him. Rather than letting that happen, it was better to just kill him. Xiaolan was incomparably terrified. Back in the sea region, he was invincible with that pearl in his hand and rarely met a worthy opponent. Was he going to die here today? What are you waiting for? Hurry up and act. Chu Feng glanced at Xiong Kuan, Hu Sheng, and the others. The group was puzzled. Clean it up, steam it, stir-fry it, turn it into porridge, and bring some good wine. Wouldn't it be a waste if we don't eat such a big lobster? Chu Feng said. He proposed a total of 3 ways to eat it. Xiong Kuan, Hu Sheng, Lu Qing, and the others felt their scalps go numb and their hair stand on end. They had truly experienced Demon King Chu's ferocity. This was a king-level entity, yet he was going to eat it just like that? Is this all right? Hu Sheng was a cautious person. He couldn't help but ask in a low voice. One had to know that this was a marine creature. The consequences of offending him would be unimaginable. Chu Feng said coldly, "What's wrong with that? If you let it go, it will remember you and will be even more eager to take revenge. Since it's unavoidable, we'll just eat it." Not far away, Ma Kuo and Qi Tang saw everything. They were so scared that they almost fainted. They finally knew what kind of terrifying character they had provoked. This was too terrifying. That was a king-level entity. Yet Demon King Chu was going to eat it at the slightest provocation. Ma Kuo and Qi Tang were trembling with fear. Immortal Chu, this is a big deal. Lu Qing was a woman from the 5-color deer race. She was the most timid of the lot and was worried about the consequences. Hu Sheng added in a low voice, "Even the Preaching Research Institute will be dissatisfied." "I'm the one who should be dissatisfied." Chu Feng's eyes flashed with cold lightning. He said, "How dare a few juniors from the Preaching Research Institute plot against me? This isn't over yet. If they don't give me an explanation, I will go to the Preaching Research Institute. I want to know if this is the attitude of those old bastards." On the ground, Ma Kuo and Qi Tang were scared out of their wits. They had thought that they had paid the price, but who would have thought that they had caused such a disaster? "Immortal Chu, we were wrong. If you have any complaints, please punish us. Don't make a big fuss." The two shouted together. "You are not worthy. Let the person who can make decisions from the Preaching Research Institute come and see me," Chu Feng said coldly. He had decided to use this incident to establish his authority. He wanted to let those big powers know that they shouldn't be used to being arrogant and overbearing. Did they really think that he, Chu Feng, would just accept an olive branch? He wanted to teach them an unforgettable lesson. Let the Preaching Research Institute clean up the mess. If they can't solve the problem, I don't mind paying them a visit, Chu Feng said. It was Qi Shang from the Preaching Research Institute who caused all this trouble. They wanted to use the white dragon to deal with him. Now, he wanted to kill and eat the king-level creatures of the sea race. Let the Preaching Research Institute deal with it. No, Xiaolan screamed. However, Xiong Kuan, Hu Sheng, and the others ignored her. They cut open the lobster shell and started to take out the crystal-clear lobster meat. Soon, the place was filled with the aroma of seafood and wine. Over the past few days, there had been a lot of comments in the book review section. I haven't said thank you yet. Chapter 212. Within the Yuangu clubhouse, the #1 room was also known as the Heavenly Court. It was the best palace in the entire clubhouse. The watchtower reserved by Xiong Kuan's group wasn't bad, but it was far from being comparable to the Heavenly Court. This place was never open to the public and would only be opened when the upper echelons were entertaining important guests. This room in the Heavenly Court ensured absolute privacy. The door and walls were made of special materials that even king-level experts couldn't easily cut open. It was impossible to eavesdrop on conversations from the outside. For instance, Chu Feng, after severing his 4th shackle, will be able to sense even the slightest movement within several kilometers. However, there was nothing he could do about this place since he couldn't hear anything. At this time, the people in the Heavenly Court were chatting merrily. The men were handsome and the women were beautiful. The room was exceptionally spacious with carved beams and painted rafters. The floor was paved with jade, and there was a clear spring, a small stone bridge, and so on. The Qi family was an important member of the Pre-Qin Research Institute, and Qi Sheng was a direct descendant of the Qi family. His eyebrows were light, but his eyes were bright. He looked quite scholarly and had a smile on his face. Beside him was a white-robed man, also an honored guest. His name was White Dragon, and he came from the Eastern Sea. His eyes were glowing with a divine light. On the other side was a man who was calm and handsome. He didn't speak much and was quite gentle. The most eye-catching feature was the vertical line between his brows, adding to his mysterious temperament. He was Mu Tian, a member of the Mu family of celestial biology. He had become a mutant 21 years ago. Jiang Luoshen was also present. Her beautiful hair was smooth and supple, her eyebrows were arched, and her eyes were moving. Her speech and bearing were both elegant and noble. She was known as the national goddess, and there was no need to doubt her country-toppling beauty. But at this moment, she was representing Bodhi biogenetics. Within the room, the young heroes from the Pre-Qin Research Institute, Celestial Biology, and Bodhi biogenetics were entertaining the honored guest of the marine race, White Dragon. The atmosphere was harmonious. White Dragon was tall and slender. He glanced at Jiang Luoshen from time to time, appreciating her beauty. He didn't hide it, but he didn't act too presumptuously. "Brother Bai, did you come to the coast to challenge people? Are you looking for young geniuses who don't have high realms, but have outstanding combat abilities?" Jiang Luoshen asked with a smile. Her bright eyes and luscious red lips made her exude an astonishing charm. "Yes, I'm no match for experts with 6 severed shackles. I only want to spar with some of the top geniuses," White Dragon laughed. Jiang Luoshen, Mu Tian, and Qi Sheng were all surprised. They came from a powerful financial magnate, and the confidential information they had received allowed them to learn a lot of secrets that were hard for outsiders to imagine. At this moment, they all had their own guesses. Brother Bai wishes to hunt down the young geniuses from the other side, right? Mu Tian asked gently. The vertical pattern between his brows looked like an eye that was about to open. The White Dragon was startled. His eyes glowed brightly as he sighed. "It seems like I can't hide it from you." Jiang Luoshen, Mu Tian, and Qi Sheng all had ripples in their eyes, but they quickly concealed their emotions. They knew that the strong warriors in the sea were not willing to be left out and were about to take action. "I've always thought that the ocean would be very peaceful, far away from the clamor of the mortal world. I didn't expect that the fellow Taoists in the ocean would be even more radical, daring to attack the outsiders," said Qi Sheng. "It's just for the breathing technique," White Dragon said, no longer hiding his intentions. At this point, hiding would only make him look petty. "I advise Brother Bai to be careful. This is very dangerous, and it might even bring destruction to our world," Mu Tian said. "Brother Bai, it's better not to be too radical," Jiang Luoshen said. Her long legs were straight, and her figure was impressive, but at this moment, she was extremely solemn. In truth, Jiang Luoshen, Mu Tian, and Qi Sheng were all surprised. Ordinary people would find it difficult to understand about the outsiders, and the creatures of the sea were isolated from the bustling land. They should be even more ignorant. You 3 have underestimated the marine race. I can reveal a few things to you. There have always been highly intelligent life forms in the sea people. They have existed since before the upheaval, and their civilization is even more prosperous than the human race. Their knowledge of history and legends is no less than yours," White Dragon said. He felt that he had been underestimated and couldn't help but reveal this secret. Could it be that the legendary Atlantis really exists, but it's just a different form of the sea people civilization? Mu Tian was very sensitive. White Dragon only smiled but didn't reply. "I believe that there are even more magnificent sceneries in the sea. Do all kinds of sacred trees grow at the bottom of the sea?" Jiang Luoshen asked. Bodhi biogenetics had always wanted to find out about this, because they were going to go out to sea in the future. White Dragon smiled. When he looked at Jiang Luoshen, his eyes were burning with admiration. He didn't answer, but he told them another important piece of information. "Since I've gotten along well with you 3, especially Goddess Jiang, I don't mind giving you a big gift." Hearing him say this, the three of them all revealed looks of surprise and interest. The world is about to undergo another upheaval. It's about to begin. To every living creature, this is a heaven-sent opportunity. It's no less than a second life. White Dragon said. Jiang Luoshan, Mu Tian, and Qi Sheng's expressions changed. This was indeed a priceless piece of information. It was related to the rise and fall of an entire race. You have to seize this opportunity. If you can conquer a famous mountain, do your best. That way, you can obtain the most valuable divine fruits and achieve a higher level of evolution. White Dragon said. Moreover, he reminded the three that at this stage, the more famous the mountain was and the more legends it had, the more powerful it would be. White Dragon said, currently, in the sea, some places are boiling with killing. The surface of the sea is dyed red with blood. But from what I see, the land is still peaceful. The experts in the sea are envious, and some of them can't help but come ashore to compete on land. That was because in the sea, countless corpses had been killed. The entire surface of the sea was dyed bright red. The competition was too intense and terrifying. Qi Sheng sighed bitterly. Who says the competition on land isn't fierce? The key is that there are some places with strong foundations. For example, Mount Longhu, but we can't conquer it. Many king-level entities have died. However, his eyes quickly lit up. Now that the Preaching Research Institute was about to conquer another famed mountain, he was confident that he would be able to overtake the world in the upcoming upheavals and become a peak expert, even among king-level entities. That was because the mountain they were about to conquer had several ancient trees that only existed in myths and legends. As the world recovered, the blooming flowers and fruits would be incomparably shocking. In Qi Sheng's eyes, the White Dragon was right. The upcoming upheaval was equivalent to giving them a second chance at life. They could turn the world around and completely change the course of their lives. If I were you, I would conquer the ancestral core of Taoism, the ancestral grounds of Buddhism, the pilgrimage grounds, or the Kunlun Mountains, even if my entire race is on the verge of extinction. White Dragon tempted them. Is it that important? Jiang Luoshan's eyelashes fluttered. Her eyes were extremely beautiful. It's even more important than you can imagine. Even the sea people might participate. White Dragon informed. According to him, once the holy trees in these places germinated, it would affect the hope of becoming a saint in the future. Outsiders could not imagine this. It might even involve the inheritance of the most powerful beings. White Dragon did not divulge any more secrets after saying this. As a creature of the sea, he knew so much. This made the three of them feel uneasy. Some of the races in the sea were not simple at all. Following that, their conversation became more relaxed. The atmosphere was harmonious and congenial. White Dragon looked at Jiang Luoshan and said, Miss Jiang, I want to know what is the relationship between you and Chu Feng. There are rumors in the outside world that there's an ambiguous relationship between the two of you. Mu Tian and Qi Sheng broke into laughter. They did not expect this distinguished sea race guest to be interested in Jiang Luoshan. He seemed to be infatuated with her and asked such a straightforward question. They could only sigh. The sea race's style of doing things was really different. They were very direct and straightforward. They did not beat around the bush and did not beat around the bush. Jiang Luoshan's sweet smile froze. Although she had already seen through White Dragon's thoughts, she did not expect him to ask such a question in public. I'm a free man. Her answer was very concise. She then added, I won't worry about my own safety for the time being. Even so, I still want to spar with that so-called Demon King Chu. White Dragon smiled. Jiang Luoshan was surprised and said, He is indeed powerful, but he is not a genius from a foreign land. But I believe he has secrets that I want to know. White Dragon's eyes flashed with lightning and disappeared in a flash. It was extremely shocking. Qi Sheng remained calm and collected. He knew that his words had worked. He wanted to use White Dragon to deal with Chu Feng. Qi Sheng sneered in his heart. The Preaching Research Institute had extended an olive branch to this demon king Chu, but he had turned a blind eye to it. He was destined to pay the price in blood. He was not worried because no one knew that he had instigated White Dragon to attack Chu Feng. Whether he succeeded or not, he would not lose anything. What he did not know was that his brother Chi Tong was too flamboyant. When they were discussing this matter in another palace, Chu Feng had heard everything. In the end, the door to the room named Heavenly Court opened and a few people walked out. The gathering was over. White Dragon went to find Xia Lan along the way. Jiang Luoshan, Mu Tian, and Qi Sheng followed him. They all knew that White Dragon's follower and sworn brother was not simple. He was a super king with 4 severed shackles. Therefore, Jiang Luoshan, Mu Tian, and Qi Sheng followed him to get to know him. A king with 4 severed shackles would be revered no matter where he went. He was worthy of being roped in by the major powers. Jiang Luoshan's nose twitched slightly from a distance. Her eyes lit up, and the corners of her mouth curled up into a surprised expression. It smells so good. Were they eating? Qi Sheng also revealed a surprised expression. It seemed that his brother had put in a lot of effort. He had found some top-grade ingredients and treated Xia Lan quite well. Even from a distance, they could already smell the century-old wine and the fragrant aroma of food. However, there were too many people drinking, and they were all drunk. No one knew what they were mumbling. It smells so good, even from so far away. Mu Tian was also sighing in admiration. He then looked at Qi Sheng and said with a smile, "Brother Qi, you're really insincere. Why didn't you invite us to have a taste of our continent's delicacies?" "Yes, it smells so good. I'm almost drooling." Jiang Luoshan nodded. Her long, snow-white legs were straight and sparkling. She ran forward with great speed, her face full of anticipation. At this moment, she wanted to turn into a foodie and enjoy the delicacies there. White Dragon was suspicious, but he didn't think too much about it. This was Qi Sheng's territory, so he didn't think such a thing would happen. A certain thought flashed through his mind before disappearing. Jiang Luoshan was the first to arrive. Her beautiful hair danced in the wind, and her eyes were full of passion. She gracefully rushed into the courtyard. "It's so big. Oh my God, it's a rare delicacy." She couldn't help but cry out in surprise. She had just caught sight of the glowing lobster in the courtyard. However, she immediately felt that something was wrong. The smile on her face froze as she thought of a certain possibility. Although she didn't know the true body of White Dragon's follower, she could make some guesses. In particular, when she saw the people in the hall clearly, she immediately understood what was going on. She immediately felt a headache because her words just now were too inappropriate. Xiong Kun, Hu Sheng, and the others were all drunk and disoriented. Only Chu Feng was slightly tipsy and calm. He sat there, pouring himself a glass of wine and drinking by himself. Jiang Luoshan was dumbfounded. Then, she felt a headache coming on. Qi Sheng was the second to enter the courtyard with a smile on his face. At this moment, he was still talking. "The aroma is so strong. It looks like there really is a top-grade ingredient. Let's have a taste." The next moment, his expression froze. His eyes widened in shock. What was that? A giant lobster. Qi Sheng's heart flipped. His vision darkened, and he almost fell to the ground. He knew what White Dragon's brother's true body was. This kind of thing actually happened in his territory. This time, it was really troublesome, absolutely piercing through the heavens. In a split second, Qi Sheng's face turned green. Mu Tian also walked in. Usually, he was calm and collected, but now he was dumbfounded. His mouth was wide open, so wide that one could stuff a duck egg into it. White Dragon was the last to enter. When he saw the scene in the courtyard, he staggered. This feeling, this scene, this person is truly beautiful beyond compare. Chu Feng was slightly tipsy. His mouth was filled with the fragrance of wine. No one knew whether he was praising Jiang Luoshan or the scene and the delicacy. In any case, the 4 people in the courtyard really didn't feel anything. This person was so beautiful that some of them were about to explode. Please vote for the holy ground. Everyone has a vote every day. If you don't vote, it will be a waste. A new week has begun. Please vote for the holy ground. At the same time, if you have a monthly vote, please don't keep it. Please vote for the holy ground. Chapter 213. Ah! The slender white dragon let out a low roar as his thick hair danced wildly in the wind. His eyes shot out a piercing beam of light that resembled two bolts of lightning. What did he see? His follower, a king-level expert with 4 severed shackles, had actually become food for a human. The large lobster was glowing with scarlet light and flowing with divine splendor. Its snow-white meat was tender and translucent, emitting a rich fragrance. The white dragon was furious. He was about to go crazy at this moment. He roared and pointed a trembling finger in front of him, shouting, "You're courting death." Not only him, but the other 3 were also dumbfounded. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. It was simply too bizarre and abrupt. Who would have thought such a thing would happen? King-level ingredients were different from the rest. There was a special fragrance to it that was exceptionally alluring. It filled the mouth and nose, causing one to drool with desire. Chu Feng was tipsy. He glanced sideways at the group with a mocking smile and a frivolous expression. He didn't put them in his eyes at all. He had even killed a true dragon during the Western punitive expedition. How dare these people scheme against him? So what if the white dragon of the marine race came? He was still fearless. "Chu Feng, what are you doing?" Chi Chang cried out loudly with an ugly expression. How was he going to explain to the marine race esteemed guest that such a thing had happened in his territory? Especially since this was done by Demon King Chu. He was already dissatisfied with this person and wanted to set him up. Who would have thought the other party would act first? The slightest mistake would cause the marine race esteemed guest White Dragon to fall out with him. Chu Feng paid him no heed. He put down the small wine cup in his hand and picked up a piece of glowing lobster meat with a pair of bamboo chopsticks. He then put it into his mouth. He didn't care at all. He ate in front of these people and even took a sip of wine in a rather casual manner. At this time, the king-level lobsters on the table were sparkling and translucent. They were steamed, stir-fried, boiled into porridge, and even sashimi. These 4 ways of eating had utilized these top-grade ingredients to their fullest potential. Seeing this, Qi Sheng's face turned ashen. "Demon King Chu, you've gone too far. You're too bold. How dare you look down on our preaching research institute? What do you think this place is?" He was berating White Dragon. He did not want to wait for White Dragon to go berserk and make things difficult for him first. He wanted White Dragon to understand that this matter had nothing to do with him. "Who do you think you are? How dare you bark in front of me? Scram! Get your grandfather here, or I'll destroy the Preaching Research Institute." Chu Feng raised his head and said coldly. A powerful aura erupted from his body, causing people's hearts to palpitate. It was as if a true dragon had awakened. For a moment, the place was quiet. However, the next moment, he restrained his aura, and his eyes became misty again as he continued to drink. The king-level lobster is definitely a rare delicacy. It can be ranked in the top 5 of the gourmet rankings. Drunk, he pointed at the table full of food with his chopsticks. After stir-frying, it is exuberant like a blazing sun, surging with essence, energy, and suffusing with a strong fragrance. It is truly of high quality. Half-drunk, Chu Feng commented one by one. The king-level sashimi is also excellent. It has a unique fragrance and is extremely delicious. It melts in the mouth and leaves an endless aftertaste. Inadvertently, he had confirmed his identity as the creator of the gourmet rankings. The outside world had been talking about this for a long time, but there was no evidence. Now, he had revealed this secret in his drunken stupor. Boom! White Dragon attacked furiously. This person actually dared to be so frivolous and speak nonsense in front of him. He deserved to be executed. One had to know that this so-called ingredient was his follower and also his sworn brother. The scene before him made him burn with anger. Thump! Chu Feng did not get up. Seeing the incoming palm strike, he immediately raised his right hand and shot out a resplendent beam of light like a divine radiant flame. With a rumble, The two experts blossomed with brilliant light, shaking the entire palace and courtyard. Chu Feng's control over his power was extremely exquisite. It covered the entire palace and protected the food and wine on the table, preventing them from being damaged. Moreover, he still did not get up, but his eyes revealed a cold glint. "Wait a moment," Qi Sheng shouted as he walked forward. First, he was ignored by Chu Feng. Then he was berated in front of everyone. Now, his expression was incomparably gloomy. He said to Chu Feng, "I don't think I've offended you. Why did you cause trouble here and kill my esteemed guest? Demon King Chu, you're too insolent. You're a hypocrite and shameless person. You secretly instigated White Dragon to kill me, and you think I don't know? Should I say you're sinister and malicious? Or should I say you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth? Who do you think you are to scheme against me?" Chu Feng stood up and looked at Qi Sheng, who was right in front of him. Then, he directly sent out a slap which landed ruthlessly on Qi Sheng's face. Qi Sheng let out a miserable cry. He had consumed a lot of mutant fruits, but he was only a quasi-king at the moment. How could he dodge? That kind of force was not something he could withstand. His cheekbone and jaw were immediately fractured, and a large number of his teeth, mixed with blood, fell out. Thump! He was sent flying out of the hall, crashing into a fake mountain in the courtyard and falling into a thicket of wisteria. Then, he saw Qi Teng and Ma Kuo. "Brother," Qi Teng called out weakly, but it was barely audible. He had been tormented by Xiong Kun and Hu Sheng. All the bones in his body had been broken, and he had almost died. Qi Sheng was seeing stars, and his ears were ringing. He had been beaten until his head was about to split open. He gritted his teeth, knowing that there was no way to resolve this matter peacefully. His scheme against Demon King Chu had been exposed. During this process, White Dragon did not stop him. Although he was surging with killing intent and wanted nothing more than to grind Chu Feng's bones into dust, he did not save Qi Sheng just now. That was because he was not a benevolent person. His sworn brother had died in Qi Sheng's territory. No matter what, Qi Sheng had to take responsibility. At the same time, he sneered in his heart. Qi Sheng wanted to use him as a spear? Did he want to borrow his strength to kill Demon King Chu? White Dragon did indeed want to hunt down Chu Feng, but that was only because he wanted to uncover his secrets. He suspected that someone like Chu Feng had a breathing technique on him. At the same time, it was also because he had taken a fancy to Jiang Luotian and wanted to kill this person who had been rumored to be in love with her. Chu Feng. Qi Sheng struggled to get up. His face was ashen, and he wanted to say something. "Shut up." At this time, Chu Feng walked over and gave him another slap. The slap sent him flying again, crashing into the wall in the distance. "How dare you question me? How dare you be so presumptuous?" Chu Feng walked over and stomped on Qi Sheng's chest. He looked down at him and said coldly, "You're not qualified." Qi Sheng's face was contorted and blue veins were popping out. His previous elegance had long since disappeared. He had never thought that he would be humiliated like this in front of Jiang Luotian, Mu Tian, and the White Dragon. "You?" He wanted to scold him. "I've already said that you're not worthy. You're not qualified to talk to me." Chu Feng looked at him indifferently and stomped down. With a loud crack, Qi Sheng's chest was completely fractured and caved in. Qi Sheng let out a blood-curdling scream and almost fainted. His forehead was drenched in cold sweat and his face was drained of blood. A mere mutant of the awakened realm dares to act so presumptuously and plot against me. Go and find your grandfather. I want to settle the score with him. If the Preaching Research Institute doesn't give me a satisfactory explanation, I don't mind annihilating you. These were Chu Feng's cold words. His expression was merciless. With a bang, his foot lit up and shattered all the bones in Qi Sheng's body. Qi Sheng lay paralyzed on the ground like a pile of mud, unable to even open his mouth. His eyes were filled with terror. Only then did Qi Sheng realize that Demon King Chu was even more terrifying than the legends. He had plotted against Chu Feng in secret, but was discovered. This was simply courting death. Moreover, he had clearly realized that he had brought disaster upon the Preaching Research Institute. Qi Sheng thought of many things. Who was Demon King Chu? He was someone who had thrown caution to the wind and turned the Vatican into ruins. Naturally, he was not afraid of the Preaching Research Institute. Chu Feng turned around and no longer looked at him. Qi Sheng was extremely sullen. He endured the pain and lay there paralyzed. Both his body and spirit were being tormented. This was a great humiliation. He could clearly feel Demon King Chu's disdain towards him. He didn't even consider him an opponent. In the end, Chu Feng completely ignored him. At this time, the white dragon was strangely quiet. He could feel Chu Feng's strength. He was far stronger than the other kings with 4 severed shackles. This made him excited. That was because he suspected that the other party had a breathing technique that could allow him to evolve to such a perfect level. He had a powerful trump card and was not afraid of the enemy's tyrannical strength. On the contrary, he became even more excited. He felt that this was a target worth hunting. Chu Feng's body was filled with the fragrance of wine. He kicked Xiong Kun, Hu Sheng, and Lu Qing one by one, causing them to sober up. Because of the impending battle, he was afraid that they would be affected. These people had drunk too much just now. The mountain of wine jars in the hall had been emptied. Ah! They cried out in alarm as they fell to the side. Afterwards, Chu Feng glanced askance at the people in front of him. His gaze swept past the white dragon and then landed on Mu Tian and Jiang Luoshan. His gaze was somewhat cold. Did Mu Tian and Jiang Luoshan help Qi Sheng in scheming against him? The Mu family of celestial biology had a great enmity with him. Chu Feng had once killed Mu Tian's younger brother. Jiang Luoshan represented Bodhi biogenetics. She was walking with the 2 families and accompanying the white dragon. It was impossible for Chu Feng not to overthink things. The young talents of the major corporations were gathering with the marine race experts. Were they going to join hands to deal with him? Chu Feng's eyes were filled with a terrifying divine light. Miss Jiang, this person has been pestering you and tarnishing your reputation. Watch how I kill him for you. The white dragon spoke. He smiled at Jiang Luoshan and then turned his cold gaze toward Chu Feng. Jiang Luoshan was already feeling uncomfortable just standing there. Now, she was even more shaken. What did this white dragon mean? Was he trying to woo her? Or was he purposely trying to drive a wedge between her and Chu Feng? Although there was nothing going on between her and Chu Feng, she still felt uncomfortable being driven apart like this. Chu Feng revealed an odd expression. Was this white dragon interested in Jiang Luoshan? He said, Luoshan, come here. Jiang Luoshan was puzzled, but she still took a few steps forward. There was no enmity between her and Chu Feng. She believed that he wouldn't attack her. Apparently, she had underestimated how dangerous Chu Feng was at the moment. Demon King Chu had already regarded her as the same as Mu Tian and Qi Sheng. He suspected that the 3 of them had invited marine race experts to deal with him. Chu Feng had drunk a lot of wine and was almost half drunk. He was frivolous and ostentatious without any restraints. With a slap, he slapped Jiang Luoshan's perky buttocks. It could be said that he was licentious and unruly. He was covered in the fragrance of alcohol. He actually dared to make such a move in his half-drunk state. He then glanced sideways at the white dragon and then at the girl in front of him. Jiang Luoshan was stunned. She couldn't believe it. Her legs were long and straight, and her figure was extremely voluptuous. She was now frozen in place. She had never imagined that she would be attacked like this. At this moment, even her snow-white neck was red. Shock was written all over her fair and translucent face, followed by anger and humiliation. This was simply unimaginable. She was about to go crazy. Chu Feng was tipsy. He was now a madman and could be said to be licentious and unrestrained. Feeling the softness and elasticity from his palm, he slapped down again. Bang! Up! Jiang Luoshan cried out miserably. She was shocked and furious. After coming to, she leaped into the air and retreated gracefully. She stood in the distance, glaring at Chu Feng with a mixture of shame and anger. Go home and take care of the fetus. Chu Feng waved at her in an ostentatious and tyrannical manner. He then glanced sideways at the white dragon and said, Come here, I'll kill you. At this moment, not to mention the white dragon, Even Mu Tian and Qi Sheng, who was lying limply on the ground, believed that there was something going on between Jiang Luoshan and Chu Feng. Chapter 214. White Dragon walked forward step by step. Around him, trees exploded and the fake mountains crumbled. The ornamental stones in the courtyard floated up into the air and hovered around him. He was emitting powerful energy fluctuations that shook the entire Yuan Ancient Club. The area in the distance where people were drinking and bustling with activity suddenly became silent. All the mutants and beast race members felt an indescribable terror in their hearts. The most intuitive feeling was that a giant prehistoric beast had awakened and had come to life in this era. A terrifying aura pervaded the air and intimidated everyone. White Dragon's face was ashen as he gazed deeply at Jiang Luoshan. Then he focused all his attention on Chu Feng. His white robes and long hair danced in the wind. He was extremely angry, and his eyes were bone-piercingly cold. He stared at Chu Feng and said, "How do you want to die?" Lightning shot out from his eyes and crackled in the air. It was incomparably strange. His entire body was enveloped in a layer of dazzling light. "Take the rest of the lobster meat away," Chu Feng instructed Xiong Kuan and the others. They couldn't possibly finish such a big lobster. Of course, the main purpose of his words was to tell Hu Sheng, Lu Qing, and the others to leave as far as possible. A king-level battle was about to break out soon. Mu Tian's figure flickered as he picked up Qi Sheng and the others and retreated with them. Jiang Luoshan's beautiful face was full of anger and humiliation. She was also retreating rapidly. The experience just now was too. She had never imagined Chu Feng would be so frivolous as to do such a thing. Boom! White Dragon's eyes were cold as the divine light around him became even more resplendent. Chu Feng gazed calmly at this person. He was indeed extraordinary. This marine expert was emitting powerful energy fluctuations. He was definitely a supreme, king-level expert. Doubtlessly, White Dragon had few opponents under the 6th severed shackle level. He was definitely a troublesome and terrifying opponent. A puny human dares to provoke my dignity and eat my followers? Even flaying you alive won't be enough to appease the hatred in my heart. White Dragon roared. This was the resentment in his heart. At the same time, there was another reason. Chu Feng's relationship with Jiang Luoshan was too ambiguous. This made him burn with jealousy. This marine expert was extremely tyrannical. A mere sea beast dares to be so arrogant in front of me. Chu Feng said coldly. At his level, he had nothing to fear as long as it wasn't an expert with 6 severed shackles. He was confident that he could sweep through all enemies. He had the belief that he was invincible. You'll never know what kind of existence you're facing. If it weren't for the fact that you might have a breathing technique, you would have died a long time ago. The White Dragon roared. He was truly furious. He was confident that he had the power to kill all his enemies. Seeing Chu Feng looking down on him like this, the boundless rage in his heart completely erupted. He was confident that he could look down on the prey on the continent. As he saw it, no one could stop him apart from experts with 6 severed shackles. The next moment he moved. With a single step, he was right in front of Chu Feng. With a cruel sneer on his face, he was arrogant and domineering. His fist was like a small sun, smashing directly at Chu Feng's face. This kind of tyranny could be considered rare. He had just made a move and had already attacked the opponent's face with a domineering attitude. He didn't put the enemy in his eyes at all. In the face of such a domineering opponent, Chu Feng wasn't angry. He was as calm as ever, but 2 beams of light shot out from his eyes. He met the attack head-on with his fists. Boom! It was as if 2 suns had exploded in the air. A blinding light erupted from between the two. It was boundlessly terrifying and caused a great energy shockwave. The palace was immediately blasted apart amidst the intense multicolored light and completely disappeared. Even the surrounding courtyards and palaces weren't spared. The rockery was crushed, and the majestic buildings were reduced to fine powder. Even the small lake, waterfall, and spring were completely dried up. This was an astonishing showdown. Chu Feng revealed an odd expression. This white dragon was indeed powerful. He actually had such a method to block his fierce attack. In truth, the white dragon was even more astonished. Any other expert with 5 severed shackles would have long since been beaten into a mist of blood. However, this human with only 4 severed shackles was actually able to contend against him. After the initial shock, the white dragon's eyes became even more fervent. He instinctively felt that this human must possess an extremely powerful breathing technique. Otherwise, there was no way he could have evolved to such a level. This kind of constitution must have received the support of the breathing technique during the evolution. The transformation process was perfect. You're destined to become a prisoner. The white dragon's eyes were fanatical. He became increasingly excited, but his killing intent and callousness were also gradually increasing. He wanted to suppress this opponent and obtain the breathing technique. The next moment, he flew up like a bolt of lightning and exchanged blows with Chu Feng. Blinding light erupted from between the two, piercing through the sky one after the other. From a distance, this area was extremely frightening. It was as if lightning had fallen from the 9 heavens. Bang, bang, bang. Beams of lightning erupted as Chu Feng and the white dragon's fists collided. The scene was terrifying. The two were entangled like demonic gods in a fierce battle. Rumble. They soared hundreds of meters into the air and confronted each other in midair. Brilliant lights were entwined around them, shocking everyone nearby. This was like a battle between 2 gods. Chu Feng revealed an odd expression. He had encountered a tyrannical opponent who was unexpectedly strong. The white dragon's heart was in turmoil. He could no longer remain calm. He was a character with 5 severed shackles and was even attempting to sever the 6th. Naturally, he was extremely powerful. However, he was unable to immediately take down Chu Feng and had fallen into a bitter struggle. It's time to end this. The white dragon let out a long roar. His voice shook the heaven and earth as he shot into the sky. It was as if he was flying through the air. Crack! Lightning danced around him. The scene was extremely astonishing. It was as if a thunder god had descended upon the world. In the distance, Mu Tian's pupils constricted. He realized how terrifying this white dragon was. He had actually grasped the power of thunder and lightning. This was one of the most difficult powers to deal with. Controlling thunder and lightning, punishing on behalf of the heavens. This kind of rumored method would normally only appear in legends. Chu Feng was fearless as he circulated his special breathing technique. The flames in his right hand were like a rainbow, while thunder and lightning rumbled in his left. Moreover, his feet were glowing as he utilized the divine feat, terrifying strength and extreme speed. He utilized all the abilities he possessed. Boom! Accompanied by resplendent radiance, the 2 experts collided. They fought fiercely in the air, landing several times before leaping back up again. It was as if a pair of terrifying demons were engaged in a fierce battle. Bolts of lightning and bolts of lightning engulfed them. The scene was simply too terrifying. In the distance, Mu Tian was indifferent. In the end, he turned around and left. "Brother Mu," Qi Sheng shouted. Mu Tian ignored him and shot him a cold glance. Speaking of which, it could be said that he and Jiang Luoshan had been tricked by Qi Sheng this time. They had gone to meet the white dragon together, causing Chu Feng to mistakenly believe that the 3 corporations had formed an alliance. Although the Mu family and Chu Feng were enemies, they would not allow others to take advantage of them. Jiang Luoshan's eyes were cold as she glared at the limp Qi Sheng on the ground. She was even more furious because today's encounter was simply too unbearable. Thinking back to what had happened just now, she still felt ashamed and resentful. Mu Tian had left, but Jiang Luoshan did not leave immediately. She stood in a safe area and watched the battle from afar. Boom! Countless bolts of lightning flashed in the air as the 2 fought fiercely. The 2 figures that were like demonic gods were surrounded by lightning. Every time they collided, it was enough to collapse a mountain. Their strength was so great that it was terrifying. The white dragon was infuriated, but at the same time, he was somewhat frightened. After hundreds of punches, blood was seeping out of his mouth and nose. He had been wounded by Demon King Chu's tyrannical fists and had been forced to stagger back. This was a true head-on confrontation. The dignified white dragon was actually at a disadvantage. Moreover, the opponent was not afraid of lightning and could also control the power of lightning. Enough, I'll send you on your way. The white dragon was furious. He had long since spoken his big words, but he had been beaten back by that terrifying young figure with blood flowing out of his mouth and nose. How humiliating was this? With a buzzing sound, a string of dark green pearls appeared on his body. Each of them was as big as an infant's head, and there were 36 of them in total. They were emitting a blinding green light. Chu Feng's heart was pounding. He shivered as he rapidly retreated. He had seen such pearls before. Not long ago, Xiaolan had used one to erupt with lightning. At that time, there was only one pearl and it had been shattered by Chu Feng. But now there were 36 of them. It was absolutely terrifying. It's useless. You can't escape. The white dragon's smile was sinister. This was his trump card. With this string of pearls, he was innately invincible and could easily suppress his opponents. The next moment, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The scene was exceedingly terrifying. The string of pearls flew up and actually chased after Chu Feng. Lightning rained down and bombarded him. This was simply heavenly punishment. In the distance, Jiang Luoxin's beautiful eyes were wide open. She was incomparably shocked. Xiong Kun, Hu Sheng, and the others were all pale in fright. This kind of lightning attack was simply unfathomable. Chu Feng was also shocked. His hair stood on end as he ran at lightning speed. The fluctuations emitted by the string of pearls were comparable to an attack from a peerless expert with 6 severed shackles. This is a genuine replica of a legendary weapon. Can you dodge it? You will die without a burial. The white dragon roared. Boom! A vast expanse of lightning rained down. Chu Feng evaded in the blink of an eye. A huge, bottomless pit appeared where he had been standing. This caused his expression to change. The power of the string of pearls was simply too great. If he were to be struck by it, he would be gravely injured even if he didn't die. I've long since said that killing you is as easy as flipping my palm. You dare contend with me? You must be tired of living. The white dragon roared confidently as he streaked across the sky. The string of pearls was too terrifying. It chased after the enemy on its own. The radiance became more and more terrifying as it erupted with even more astonishing lightning. It was about to pour down in torrents. In the distance, some people sighed inwardly. This was a fatal blow. Jiang Luoxin's mood was complicated as she looked ahead. This kind of power that could control the power of nature was too shocking. Immortal Chu, brother-in-law, hold on. Hu Sheng, Xiong Kun, and the others were pale. They couldn't help but cry out in alarm. They had long since tied themselves to Demon King Chu's chariot. Naturally, they didn't want him to be defeated. Chu Feng moved with extreme speed. He dodged left and right, constantly changing his position. However, the dark green string of pearls seemed to have locked onto him and followed his movements. A vast expanse of lightning was about to engulf him. Chu Feng's eyes were filled with cold electricity. After several attempts, he realized that he couldn't break free from this strange string of pearls. He no longer hesitated and suddenly shot out the shiny diamond chakram. With his current strength, the power of this snow-white ring-shaped weapon became even more terrifying after he threw it with all his might. It almost tore apart the void, erupting with blinding white light. Boom! It pierced through the lightning and collided with a mysterious string of pearls. A dazzling rain of light erupted as if the sun had exploded. Crack! In the end, the sound of shattering rang out. The lightning receded and the dark green string of pearls was revealed. It had been broken into pieces and directly fell to the ground. Ah, no! The white dragon let out a heart-wrenching roar. This string of pearls was his life, because it could ensure that he could move unhindered. But now, it had actually been broken and fell to the ground. The diamond chakram also fell to the ground. It was snow white and undamaged. Chu Feng rushed over with a single step and picked it up. He then wore it on his wrist. Boom! Following which, he leapt up into the air and circulated his breathing technique. His whole body was glowing like a resplendent god of war. He attacked the white dragon with all his might. His fists were like the sun and moon in the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Tens of hundreds of tyrannical attacks forced the white dragon into a bloody battle. In the end, the white dragon could no longer endure and was sent flying while coughing up blood. Boom! Chu Feng utilized his divine feat and ran at 4 times the speed of sound. He directly caught up, and his right fist was like a blazing sun as it pierced through the sky. The white dragon let out a miserable cry as his body was pierced through and blood gushed out. Following which, his body began to crack and become stained with blood as his chest exploded, slaying the dragon. Chapter 2:15. White Dragon let out a blood-curdling screech as his chest was blasted open. His entire body was drenched in blood as he was sent flying and crashed into a fake mountain. He rolled on the ground, his body almost broken into 2 pieces. Only a small part of his body was still connected. That fist hole had torn apart his body with astonishing destructive power. Chu Feng walked over and gazed at him with cold eyes. In the distance, Jiang Luoshan revealed an astonished expression. This was the first time she had seen an evolved king level Chu Feng fight a decisive battle. This kind of scene was simply too shocking. She had witnessed the whole process. Chu Feng was like a god of war. His body was glowing, his skin was resplendent, and his eyes shot out 2 beams of light. He possessed an extraordinary temperament as he suppressed his opponent with overwhelming power. He's so strong. She couldn't help but mutter to herself. Seeing such a battle at such close range caused her heart to fluctuate uncontrollably. Xiong Kuan, Hu Sheng, Lu Qing, and the others were shaken. After a moment of silence, they broke out in cheers. Such a powerful white dragon had actually been defeated by Chu Feng. They were all pleasantly surprised. Their eyes were burning with admiration, and they felt that they would follow Demon King Chu from now on. This kind of demonic, godlike, demonic style shocked them. White Dragon was rolling on the ground in incomparable pain. His vitality was declining sharply, and he had already lost the ability to fight. When he saw Chu Feng walking over, he became restless and roared continuously. Chu Feng arrived before him and looked down at him. You just stretch your arms and legs, and your body has just started to heat up, but you've already collapsed. He was very calm. The moment these words were uttered, the white dragon was provoked beyond belief. It widened its eyes and crackled with electricity all over its body. You're a bit weak, Chu Feng said. In truth, he had acknowledged White Dragon in his heart. He was truly powerful, far surpassing other experts with 5 severed shackles. Especially that dark green string of beads. It was even more terrifying. It was enough to kill any entity below the level of a peerless expert. At this time, that broken string of beads was already in his hands. He needed to bring it back for further research. White Dragon was so agitated that he wanted to roar out loud. This was undisguised contempt and humiliation. A majestic white dragon who had swept through all obstacles was actually being looked down upon. This was especially so when he had already declared that he viewed Chu Feng as prey and that he would hunt him down. Yet, this was the result in the end. The white dragon flew into a rage out of humiliation. He was actually defeated in the hands of his prey. He was not his opponent, and this made him feel extremely humiliated. Don't be complacent. There are countless races in the sea, and experts come forth in large numbers. Once the true experts arrive, the mountains will collapse and the earth will crack. He said fiercely, his eyes cold. Even though he had lost, he still refused to admit defeat. Oh, the sea race is going to come ashore? Chu Feng was surprised. The sea people will eventually come ashore and occupy the famous mountains and rivers on the land. When that time comes, you will know how insignificant you are. The white dragon said. Chu Feng laughed involuntarily. Were there no peerless experts on the continent with 6 severed shackles? He looked down at the white dragon and said, "How do you want to die?" At that moment, the white dragon's expression changed. Not long ago, he had asked Chu Feng how he wanted to die. In the end, the answer was himself. Although he was reluctant to admit defeat, who was willing to die? I was too rash this time. I shouldn't have listened to Qi Sheng's instigation. I hereby apologize to you. How about we let bygones be bygones? The white dragon whispered. With his strong character, it was rare for him to lower his head in such a manner. Chu Feng stared at him without saying anything. In the distance, Qi Sheng was furious. He had indeed instigated the white dragon to attack, but the white dragon also suspected that Chu Feng possessed a mysterious breathing technique. He had long since decided to kill him. Tell me about the sea race, Chu Feng said calmly. The ocean is boundless, and there are many peerless experts here. Some of the sea race experts have already come ashore to fight for the famous mountains and rivers, the white dragon said. He didn't mind leaking some information. He wanted to give Chu Feng a lot of pressure. Is there anything else? For example, where the Fusang Divine Tree is, whether the Sea, Dragon Palace, and the overseas Immortal Islands exist, Chu Feng said. The white dragon was stunned. He could only be considered the overlord of a small part of the sea. Naturally, he didn't know much about these things. I advise you to give up. Those places are definitely filled with the peerless overlords of the sea race. You land creatures can't compete with them. Chu Feng looked at him and said, Since you don't know these things, what's the point of keeping you alive? The white dragon's expression changed. Chu Feng, you should know that there are countless experts and races in the ocean. It's not something you can fight against. If you kill me, it'll start a war. Chu Feng asked calmly, what else? If you let me go, I'll pretend that nothing happened today. The white dragon said. Puffed. The next moment, Chu Feng shot out a scarlet flying knife. With a puff, he cut off the white dragon's head and said, I've never been threatened. You. The white dragon didn't die immediately after his head fell to the ground. He stared at Chu Feng with wide eyes. After a while, the white dragon died. At the same time, he transformed into his true form, a snow-white electric eel. It was dozens of meters long and crackling with electricity. After a long time, the electric arcs finally disappeared. Chu Feng was expressionless. He didn't regret it at all. So what if it was the sea race? They dared to bully him. How would he let them go? Even if he was merciful and spared his life, the white eel would still seek revenge. It would be very crazy. It was better to just kill it. Does an electric eel taste good? Chu Feng muttered to himself. In the distance, Jianglu Ocean was shocked. That was a small overlord of the sea. He could be considered a supreme king, but he was killed by Chu Feng just like that. She was speechless when she heard his words. How thick was this guy's nerves? The first thing he thought of was eating. Qi Sheng's vision darkened, and he almost fainted. He knew that he was in big trouble. Ma Kuo and Qi Tong were trembling in fear. Brother, we're done for. Demon King Chu once said that we're to blame for his conflict with the sea race. He said he would let the Preaching Research Institute handle it. Otherwise, he would annihilate all of us, Qi Tong whispered. Even his soul was trembling. Qi Sheng's eyes rolled back, and he fainted after hearing this. Brother-in-law is mighty. He's too powerful. Xiong Kuan shouted excitedly. Hu Sheng, Lu Qing, and the others were also excited and ran over in large strides. A mere eel dares to call itself a dragon? I knew it. How could a flood dragon be weaker than a western dragon? Chu Feng observed the white dragon's corpse. The eel was white in color and could be considered rare. Its entire body was sparkling and translucent like jade. Wake Qi Sheng up and tell him to contact the higher-ups of the Preaching Research Institute. Chu Feng said. Understood. Hu Sheng and the others carried a few buckets of ice water and poured it on Qi Sheng's body. They told him to contact his grandfather or else he would be annihilated. If the Preaching Research Institute doesn't have enough sincerity to move me, you'll have to bear the consequences. Chu Feng reminded. Qi Sheng's face was pale and full of regret. He had failed to invite Chu Feng to the meeting and had already thought of revenge. Now, he had drawn such a powerful enemy. All in all, he was used to being conceited and arrogant. He had always thought that the Preaching Research Institute was superior to everyone else. In the end, he had kicked a steel plate. His heart was filled with regret. The world had changed, but his mentality had not completely changed. He lacked respect for an ordinary person who had evolved into a king. He wanted to scheme against him, but in the end, he had stirred up a disaster. Grandpa! Qi Sheng dialed his grandfather's communicator and tried to explain himself. Do you want to die? An old man's roar came from the other side of the call. Qi Sheng's face turned pale and pale. Grandpa, I was wrong. Qi Sheng was trembling. Use all forces to seal off the Yuangu clubhouse. Don't let any news leak out. I'll head to Shuntian immediately. Qi Honglin said. He wanted nothing more than to kill Qi Sheng. He knew he was in big trouble this time. His grandson had failed to scheme against Demon King Chu and had instead been discovered. This was simply courting death. But Chu Feng didn't kill Qi Sheng and instead told him to inform his clansmen. This was an exorbitant demand. Otherwise, he would come knocking on their doors. This was no ordinary king-level expert. He had slaughtered the dragon race and the golden lion race. He was ridiculously ferocious. Qi Honglin felt a headache coming on. He wanted nothing more than to personally kill Qi Sheng, Qi Teng, and Ma Kuo. They had actually provoked Demon King Chu. This electric eel is completely white. Don't tell me it's albino. Can it be eaten? Chu Feng mumbled. He was quite free at the moment. He had people find large freezers to store lobsters and electric eels. He was going to eat them slowly and gift them to others. The Preaching Research Institute was anxious. They mobilized all their forces to prevent people from entering and leaving the Yuangu clubhouse. The higher-ups had already moved out to handle the matter personally. Jiang Luoshan was looking at Chu Feng from afar. She wanted to go over at first, but she noticed the strange expression in his eyes. He was actually staring at the place she had slapped. She immediately turned around and left in embarrassment. Go back and focus on your pregnancy, Chu Feng teased from behind. He had just learned from Qi Sheng that Jiang Luoshan and Mu Tian weren't involved in the scheme against him. Otherwise, even a national goddess wouldn't be able to leave this place alive. You're a bastard. Jiang Luoshan turned around and glared at him angrily. However, she found that the fellow's gaze was quite demonic. He was still staring at a certain part of her body. She immediately ran away in a sorry state. One day and one night later, Qi Honglin from the Preaching Research Institute arrived at Shuntian. Although he had arrived in secret, he had still alarmed some people. Elder Qi, some people of great influence went to greet him enthusiastically. That was because Qi Honglin was one of the leaders of the Preaching Research Institute. Qi Honglin sighed lightly. After greeting these people, he didn't stay for long. He immediately set off to pay Demon King Chu a visit. He had already contacted Chu Feng in private, and the feedback he received gave him a headache. The Golden Lion wanted to bully me and was eaten by me. The Qilin King threatened to kill me and was roasted by me. I have no enmity with the Preaching Research Institute, yet you dare to plot against me. You guys decide what to do. This kind of reply caused Qi Honglin's heart to twitch. He knew that the other party was infuriated. Although he didn't directly demand an exorbitant price, his tone was even more serious. Demon King Chu wasn't an ordinary king-level expert. To appease his anger, one would need to bleed profusely. Qi Honglin hadn't slept well for the past 2 days. He could clearly feel that Chu Feng wasn't joking. If he didn't satisfy this Demon King, he might really come knocking on his door. After arriving at Shuntian, Qi Honglin had wanted to kill Qi Sheng immediately. However, he couldn't bring himself to do so in the end. After all, Qi Sheng was his own grandson. Qi Honglin rubbed his temples and pondered for a while. Finally, he contacted Chu Feng and informed him that he had brought him a legendary ancient book and wanted to see it. Chapter 216. A Legendary Tome? This astonished Chu Feng. He was extremely interested, but he was able to keep his composure. His tone was calm and emotionless as he informed Chu Feng that he had no time today and would meet at noon the next day. Chi Honglin frowned. He was keenly aware that he couldn't underestimate this young man. He was quite powerful. At first, he thought the other party would be excited after hearing about the legendary tome and would immediately meet up with him. He would then take the initiative and resolve this matter satisfactorily. However, the other party was extremely calm. This was a bit troublesome. Chi Honglin felt that Demon King Chu was purposely giving him the cold shoulder to increase his sincerity. Unfortunately, it's not my grandson. He sighed. He shook his head and broke into laughter. That person was a living ancestor. He had no right to have such a grandson. Beside him, Qi Sheng's expression was unsightly, but he didn't dare say anything. This time, he was the one who had brought disaster upon the Preaching Research Institute. It was also because of this incident that he yearned to be a top-grade king-level expert. He was just one person, but his every word and action could threaten a major corporation. This was especially true for this Demon King Chu. He would eat at the slightest disagreement. He was too violent and wild, scaring the entire Preaching Research Institute into a panic. White Dragon and Xiaolan were esteemed guests of the marine race. Yet, they were knocked down by Chu Feng's fists and brought away as food for him to gorge himself on. What would they do if the marine race blamed them? That Demon King had clearly said that they would be the scapegoat. At this moment, Chi Honglin was also having a headache. Looking at his grandson, Qi Sheng, whose bones were all fractured and his body was covered in plaster casts and metal braces, he wanted to slap him to death. You think you're so smart, trying to scheme against a supreme, king-level expert? Why don't you think about your own status? Even our entire Preaching Research Institute wouldn't dare to go to war with him, let alone you. Chi Honglin flicked his sleeves and left in large strides. He didn't want to see this grandson of his ever again. At this time, Chu Feng was at the Hollow Jade Temple with a group of acquaintances. They were drinking to their heart's content. The clairvoyant, clairaudient, Yi Qingru, and Chen Luoyan were all present. The clairvoyant Du Huijin's eyes went wide when he saw the king-level lobster. Such a huge lobster. It must have been a spirit for hundreds of years, right? Why do I feel like I've caught the prawn soldiers and crab generals from the legends? This is the first time I've seen such a thing in my life, and this prawn meat actually has a unique fragrance. Boss is mighty. When you went missing a while ago, we were so upset. Little sister Qingru even cried. We even made a cenotaph for you to burn. Ouyang Qing, the clairaudient, said. Who's crying? Yi Qingru had a head full of wavy, curly hair. Her large eyes were charming, but they rolled back. A while ago, they were all in low spirits. Rumor had it that Chu Feng had fallen in the west. Yi Qingru had secretly wiped away her tears, thinking that he had really died in the Vatican. Later, when they learned that Chu Feng was still alive and saw him slaying a dragon at the foot of Mount Kunlun, they were all thrilled. You gluttons, what is this? It's king-level flesh and blood. Why didn't you send it to the laboratory? Lu Tong came over and stomped his feet in frustration. Don't worry, I left you half a dragon. You can experiment with it, said Chu Feng. That white electric eel was dozens of meters long and really couldn't be eaten. Although electric eels were stronger, they didn't taste as good as the king-level lobster. Lu Tong scolded them, but when it came time to eat, he swept everything away like a whirlwind. His appetite was so great that he even burped in the end. After getting drunk, he even praised the king-level ingredients as rare delicacies. At night, Chu Feng was playing with the broken beads in his hand. Out of the 36 beads, more than 20 had exploded, and the rest were also cracked. He had contacted Yellow Cattle and asked him to identify what kind of weapon this was. Yellow Cattle told him that this was a magical weapon. It was a weapon that could release strange powers, and it was a rare sight to see one in front of him. Yellow Cattle warned him that if he met an enemy with such a magical weapon, he had to be careful. Its destructive power was great. Last time, when they returned from the west, the divine emissary they met at the entrance of the Misty Valley was holding a silver lamp. It was also a magical weapon and contained the flames of extreme Yin. It should be even more powerful. At noon the next day, Chu Feng arrived at the Primordial Club on time. This time, he was invited into the room called the Heavenly Court. The decorations were exquisite, and the interior of the hall was extremely spacious. There was actually a clear spring, a forest, and a small stone bridge. Shi Honglin's hair was jet black, and his face was rosy. He didn't look like an old man at all, and seemed to be in the prime of his life. Most importantly, he was already a king-level expert and didn't look old. The moment they met, Qi Honglin immediately apologized and sighed. He said that his grandson Qi Sheng had always been conceited and neglected to discipline him. In the end, he had brought about a disaster. If I wasn't strong enough, I would have died in the hands of the marine race, Chu Feng said. Qi Honglin naturally knew that a simple apology wouldn't solve the problem. This was the great demon king Chu they were talking about. His grandson had actually provoked him and wanted to kill him. Our Preaching Research Institute has always liked to research the direction of history, excavate historical remains, and study the truth of myths and legends. We've obtained some strange items over the years. This time, we'd like to invite Brother Chu Feng to appraise them. Although he was going to bleed and give Chu Feng something, he didn't say it so bluntly. Qi Honglin brought out a simple and unadorned small box. After opening it, he brought out a few bundles of bamboo slips. They carried with them an aura of decay and the marks of time. When unearthed, these things would immediately rot if they weren't properly preserved. Chu Feng was astonished. Was this the ancient book that they were going to deliver to him? He received them and looked at them in detail. They mentioned some mythological characters and vaguely described how powerful experts breathed in and out mist, paying attention to the rhythm of their breathing. But this was of no use to him. Although I'm quite interested in the truth of history and ancient legends, I'm not at the stage where I view them as equal to my own life, Chu Feng said. Little friend, don't be anxious. Look carefully. This bamboo slip mentions a secret treasure. It's said to be so powerful that it can sever immortal-level entities. Qi Honglin was very patient. He explained to Chu Feng the things mentioned in the bamboo slips. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to recognize the ancient characters. The bamboo slips mentioned an item that could slay demons, eliminate ghosts, and even sever immortal bodies. Its power was astonishing, and it was hidden between heaven and earth. From Chu Feng's point of view, it was a weapon. Moreover, it seemed to be extremely powerful and was held in high esteem during ancient times. According to the bamboo slips, it possessed unfathomable power. Where is it? Chu Feng asked. He knew that the other party wouldn't use a legend to trick him. They must have some clues about where this weapon was buried. But he could also guess that the place was likely to be very dangerous. Otherwise, why would the race bring it out for him? They would have gone to retrieve it themselves. It's buried in a beautiful mountain range, Qi Honglin said. You can't take it out, right? That place must be incomparably dangerous, Chu Feng said. This made Qi Honglin feel quite awkward. That was indeed the case. Moreover, it was only a matter of time before they gave it to Demon King Chu. In fact, they had discussed among themselves and concluded that even if this item existed, it should have been taken away by someone else. There shouldn't be such a legendary weapon beneath the mountain range. Where do you think it is? Chu Feng asked. A dragon's aura is steaming, a tiger's killing intent condensed, a dragon and a tiger guarding each other. There's only one place in this terrain, Qi Honglin sighed. Mount Long. Chu Feng frowned. Correct. That's the only place in the ancestral court of Taoism where such a mysterious antique could be hidden, Qi Honglin said. However, the bamboo slip was badly damaged and was missing a lot of information. It only mentioned a legendary object, but didn't describe its appearance in detail. Chu Feng revealed an odd expression. If there was a weapon buried in the ancestral court of Taoism, then it would be truly terrifying. It would definitely be extraordinarily powerful to be buried in this kind of ancestral ground. But very soon, he revealed a cold expression and said, Everyone knows that the current Mount Longhu is extremely dangerous. Many beast kings have died there. What's the meaning of telling me this? Chu Feng's expression was cold. He knew that the Preaching Research Institute, Bodhi Biogenetics, Celestial Biology, and Extraterrestrial Research Institute had all attacked Mount Longhu before, but had all returned in defeat. Who knew how many beast kings had died there? It was said that there was something strange on the mountain, and they couldn't take it down. You want to use a dangerous place like Mount Longhu to lure me to my death. He raised his voice. Little brother Chu Feng, please don't misunderstand. I'm only telling you that there's a secret treasure there. I have no ill intentions. Chi Hong Lin shook his head repeatedly and finally admitted that he wanted to cooperate with Chu Feng to attack Mount Longhu. Chu Feng laughed coldly and said, "You guys really have a good plan. Little brother Chu Feng, I'm not joking. I really want to cooperate with you because that place is too important. The marine race has revealed that even they have their eyes on that place." Chi Hong Lin informed him that the ancestral court of Taoism, Kunlun, the ancestral land of Buddhism, and the pilgrimage grounds were the most important places. Even the marine race was envious, and some experts had come ashore to fight for them. He went on to say that there would be a great battle in the future. These places were definitely hiding great secrets and needed to be controlled. Chu Feng had already set his sights on Mount Longhu. Now that he heard this, he felt a wave of suspicion. Even the marine race was going to launch a large-scale attack? In order to express my sincerity, I'll tell little brother Chu Feng an extremely important piece of information. The world is about to undergo an intense transformation, and we need to conquer a famed mountain as soon as possible. Our first choice is a place like the ancestral court of Taoism. I know the world is about to change again, Chu Feng said calmly. He looked at Chi Hong Lin and said, "Is this bamboo slip your sincerity? This so-called ancient mythological book is only SOSO." To him, this had no real meaning. "I prepared a great gift for little brother." Chi Hong Lin was helpless. In the end, he took out a small box that was only 1 foot long. After opening it, there was a small silver spear similar in thickness to a chopstick. It flickered with silver light and was extremely sharp. Chu Feng's heart stirred. He used his spiritual energy, and the small silver spear immediately rushed out with a swoosh. It spiraled in the room and finally pierced through the several feet thick steel wall with a puff. Not bad. Chu Feng nodded and was delighted. This silver spear was not inferior to his scarlet flying sword, and might even be of a higher quality. Chi Honglin's heart was bleeding. This weapon was excavated from an underground ruin, and he had long known it was extraordinary. It was similar to a flying sword and other divine weapons. However, none of them could use it because they lacked the imperial sword technique. This time, they had no choice but to bring it along and give it to Chu Feng. The Preaching Research Institute lives up to its name. As expected, it has some rare ancient artifacts. It's just that I don't know if the ancient mythological book exists or not. Chu Feng said, "Isn't this silver spear enough for little brother Chu Feng? You contacted me before and said that there was an ancient mythological book. However, that bamboo slip wasn't one of them. I think there's something else," Chu Feng said. "There's indeed something rare. In that case, I'll give it to little brother Chu Feng as well." Chi Hong Lin took out a piece of jade. It was very old and lacked luster. One look, and one could tell that it was an ancient item. Chi Hong Lin told him that this should be a jade book from the legends and should have records of Tao arts. However, there was only a trace of flood dragon in this piece. Unfortunately, there were no words. This item is extraordinary. It was found in the depths of the sea many years ago. We all felt that it was extraordinary, but we couldn't figure out anything from it. Today, I'm giving it to you as a token of goodwill. I hope that we can turn hostility into friendship, Chi Hong Lin said. Chu Feng took it and looked at it carefully. He discovered that there was indeed a flood dragon phantom in the jade, and there was nothing else special about it. He studied it, but couldn't find anything special about it. Chu Feng casually took a photo of the jade and sent it to Yellow Cattle. He also told it about the details and asked it to help him figure out if this thing was useful. Yellow Ox gave him a reply almost immediately. It seemed to be very urgent, telling him that he had to keep it safe. Chu Feng kept the jade without batting an eyelid. He asked it through the communicator. What is this? Call for recommendation tickets and request for support. Chapter 2:17. Yellow Cattle told him not to lose it at all costs. This item had a great origin and might be a type of inheritance. It recorded ancient fist techniques, breathing rhythms, and so on. Chu Feng was astonished. The fist techniques, breathing rhythms, and so on were actually carved into the jade. It could indeed be called a mythological book. Yellow Cattle suspected that this might be a rare treasure similar to the inheritance left behind by a certain lineage. Moreover, it was already preparing to kill its way to Shantian. Chu Feng didn't ask further because the occasion wasn't right. He put away the communicator to avoid being discovered by Qi Honglin. Despite Qi Honglin's age, he addressed Chu Feng as a friend of the same generation. It was very natural for him to address Chu Feng as little brother. He didn't feel embarrassed at all. I can't see through this item. It looks just like an ordinary piece of ancient jade, Chu Feng replied. Following which, he smiled calmly and asked if the Preaching Research Institute had any other rare items. He could continue to help appraise them and see what their origins were. Qi Honglin was speechless. He had also said the same thing when he delivered the item. Asking Chu Feng to appraise it was not that straightforward and gave him a way out. However, the other party was also being so genteel. It was obvious that they wanted to extort him further. Little brother Chu Feng, this piece of jade is extremely important and can be considered a rare treasure. Although we can't see through it, we feel that it's extremely extraordinary. We're gifting it to you to sow good karma, Qi Honglin said with a sincere expression. Chu Feng was unmoved. These old fellows who had come from the corporate powers were all very amiable, but when it came to using their knives, each one was more ruthless than the other. Presently, he was in a powerful position. Otherwise, he would have long since been skinned alive by the Preaching Research Institute. Since he had already demanded an exorbitant price, how could he stop in a hurry? In any case, the other party saw this as extortion, so he might as well go all out. You said this piece of jade is a mythological book, but who knows? In any case, I can't see through it. It's meaningless to me. Since that's the case, return the jade book to me. I'll exchange it for an antique later. Qi Honglin sighed. Chu Feng felt his teeth aching. This old fellow was purposely making things difficult for him. Clearly, he was guessing that Chu Feng would not return the jade book. If you can find some antiques that are similar to the jade, I'll let bygones be bygones, said Chu Feng. In his opinion, the Preaching Research Institute had been researching the truth of history, excavating underground relics, and researching myths and legends. There should be something similar. It could even be said that in today's world, if one were to talk about who had the most rare and precious antiques, there shouldn't be any major power that could compare to this consortium. Qi Honglin smiled and said, not to mention the Preaching Research Institute. Even in the entire world, you can't find more than 3 to 5 pieces of this kind of jade. This is the legendary mythological book. It's amazing. Then it's settled. Give me 5 jade books, Chu Feng said. Qi Honglin was stunned and felt a stomachache. He had said that there weren't even 3 to 5 pieces in the whole world, and this brat insisted on the largest number? No, he flatly refused. He couldn't give it away like this. Elder Qi, you said just now that there should be 3 to 5 pieces in this world. Don't hide it anymore. Chu Feng wouldn't relent and insisted on asking for it. Qi Honglin shook his head and said that he was only giving the most precious jade book to Chu Feng in order to sow good karma. The Preaching Research Institute didn't have a second piece. This time, I almost died in the hands of marine race experts. Elder Qi, do you think a small spear the size of a chopstick and a broken stone can compensate me? Chu Feng said. Qi Honglin cast him a sidelong glance. This brat was too thick-skinned. How could he say that he almost died in the hands of the marine race? It was clearly you who ate them. At the same time, how could the value of that silver spear be measured by its size? It was a treasure on par with the legendary flying sword. If it were to be released, many major corporations would fight to the death for it. The two haggled for a while, and Chi Honglin told him that he indeed knew where the other piece of jade was, but the premise was that Chu Feng could unearth its secrets. An odd expression appeared on Chu Feng's face. He had always felt that the other party wasn't very thorough in his refusal. Now, he had indeed revealed some clues. Was he trying to use him to unravel the secret? But why did the Preaching Research Institute think that he would cooperate with them after obtaining the secret of the jade? Was this old fellow that confident? Chu Feng felt that it was quite odd. Little brother Chu, I've come with sincerity. I'll give you the ancient jade book. If you can comprehend it thoroughly, you can come to the Preaching Research Institute to dispel our doubts. Perhaps we really can find the second piece of jade together. In the end, Chi Honglin's smile disappeared, and he told Chu Feng this directly. He expressed his sincerity again and again, hoping for a win-win situation. However, this caused Chu Feng to frown. He had thought of many things in the blink of an eye. If your Preaching Research Institute can conquer a famed mountain and allow me to cultivate there for a period of time, we can consider further cooperation. I won't be on the mountain for too long. 10 days to half a month should be enough. In the end, Chu Feng put forward this condition. He wanted to use the precious soil of the famed mountain to plant the seed in the stone box. Chi Honglin pondered for a while and felt that it was no big deal. He would inform Demon King Chu after he had plucked the most important divine fruit. Finally, they talked about the marine race. Chi Honglin told him that the continent would soon be in chaos and that some marine race experts would surely come ashore. This was only part of the information his grandson Qi Sheng had obtained from the White Dragon. It was likely that the situation was even more serious. Just as the two were talking, a small mountain was moving rapidly in the depths of the Eastern Sea. It was riding the wind and breaking the waves, stirring up sky-high waves and stirring up the vast waters. Upon closer inspection, it was a giant sea turtle hundreds of meters long. It was as large as an island and shockingly large. As it paddled, the snow-white waves rolled up and down. Finally, it arrived at the shore of the Eastern Sea. A group of powerful people flew hundreds of meters into the air and landed on top of the small mountain. Their leader was a lady with waist-length aqua-blue hair. It was smooth and supple, and there were sparkling protrusions amidst her fluttering hair. This lady could be said to have skin of ice and bones of jade. Her beauty was enough to topple cities. She flew thousands of meters in the air without falling and was still advancing, surpassing the people behind her. Her beauty was somewhat unreal. Her dress fluttered in the wind, and she was like a fairy of the moon who had descended to the mortal world. After traversing for a long time, she landed on the ground and gazed at the vast continent. Her eyes were suffused with a brilliant glow as she said softly, "The ancestral court of Taoism, the ancestral land of Buddhism, Kunlun, and the pilgrimage grounds. It's time to make a choice." Her voice was gentle, but the people chasing after her were all filled with reverence. With her in the lead, they were about to conquer the famed mountains of the world. At the same time, great waves were surging in the southern sea. There was a tall and straight man with a weak complexion and a head of black hair draped over his shoulders. He was treading on the 10-meter-tall waves at great speed. He could control the boundless ocean, and the waves wrapped around him as he moved toward the distant shore. The man had a robust physique and a single horn on his long black hair. He was very handsome with brilliant pupils. At this moment, he was laughing loudly and saying, "Am I the first to reach the shore? I want to ascend the best famed mountains. Mount Longhu and the Great Thunderclap Monastery are both good choices." In truth, there were many places in the depths of the ocean that couldn't remain calm. Miraculous scenes were taking place. Giant beasts appeared in some places, and deities appeared in other places. It was to the extent that a certain sea region in the Atlantic Ocean was surging. Afterward, the seawater parted and a silver flying saucer rushed out. This was an astonishing product of high technology as it rushed toward the mainland. Shuntian, Yuangu Club. Chi Honglin got up, and personally sent Chu Feng off. He was very polite and chatted with Chu Feng as they walked. When they parted, he mentioned that the Preaching Research Institute was very willing to cooperate with him to attack a famed mountain. Chu Feng was deep in thought as he left. He deeply felt that the Preaching Research Institute wasn't simple. He returned home and began to study this piece of jade. He tried all sorts of methods and used his powerful spiritual power to probe it several times, but to no avail. He was puzzled. Could it be a fake? But why did the flood dragon phantom within give him a strange feeling? This was a type of intuition. He felt that this piece of jade should be extraordinary. 3 days later, Yellow Cattle arrived. He had taken a plane from the west to Shuntian. It could be said that he was travel-worn and in a hurry. The Black Yak had also arrived. He was still in the same getup with his slick back hair, large sunglasses, and a cigar as thick as a carrot in his mouth. This kind of getup was like that of a ruffian, attracting the attention of passers-by. Were it not for the fact that Yellow Cattle was simply too beautiful and could offset some of his ruffian aura, the passers-by would probably avoid them and not dare approach. That bastard Zhou Etienne should be in Shuntian. This time, I'm going to beat him up so badly that even his mother won't recognize him. The Black Yak mumbled with the cigar in his mouth. He had a belly full of anger after being accused of having a crush on the White Snake. Finally, they arrived outside the Hollow Jade Temple. The Black Yak's appearance almost caused the mutants here to sound the alarm and shout that they were under attack. That was because, whether it was his appearance or words, he did not seem like a good person. Chu Feng received Yellow Cattle's message and immediately rushed out to lead them in. However, he did not dare to bring them into his own house for fear that the Black Yak would spout nonsense. That was because this fellow had actually patted the old man's shoulder and called him Big Brother, causing the old man to grimace in pain. If the Black Yak were to run into their house and call Wang Jing his sister-in-law, Chu Feng would be depressed to death. In any case, this fellow was capable of doing all sorts of shameful things. Yellow Cattle had long since become impatient. As soon as he entered the sealed training room of the Hollow Jade Temple, his eyes lit up. He asked Chu Feng to quickly take out the jade. Chu Feng was excited. He knew how high Yellow Cattle's standards were. If even this fellow valued the jade, it was enough to prove that it was extraordinary. Oh, this is a good item. Yellow Cattle caressed the jade and immediately gave such an evaluation. According to him, this piece of ancient jade was the most suitable for carving and inheritance. 2 golden lines shot out from his eyes as he gazed at the flood dragon phantom in the jade. Chapter 2:18. After hearing this, Chu Feng was delighted at first, but then he frowned. This was a sex art of invincibility, but it needed to be collected. Did this mean that it was incomplete? The Black Yak was fairly excited. He asked Yellow Cattle what kind of secret art it was that made him so excited. It's an extremely powerful inheritance. If we can master it, our strength will increase by leaps and bounds. Yellow Cattle laughed happily. He was now in the form of a 5 or 6-year-old pretty boy with long golden hair and big sparkling eyes. His entire being was full of spirit, and his smile was exceptionally radiant. Swoosh! The Black Yak snatched the jade stone like a scoundrel snatching candy from child's hand. He threw away his sunglasses, combed his swept-back hair, and grinned foolishly as he stared at the stone. But in the end, his face was filled with doubt. Other than seeing a flood dragon's shadow, he couldn't sense any other inheritance. This kind of inheritance is very particular. Ordinary people can't activate the seal on the jade stone. Yellow Cattle raised his melon-shaped head and blinked his long eyelashes, appearing somewhat mischievous. Who left it? How powerful is it? Chu Feng asked. It's not inferior to the Demon Ox Fist. It's an extremely ancient fist art. If you can master it, you'll be invincible. Yellow Cattle stroked the jade stone. Chu Feng was startled. The Demon Ox Fist was indeed powerful, but it shouldn't be related to the art of invincibility, right? The Black Yak also revealed a puzzled expression. He had also cultivated the Demon Ox Fist, and it was indeed powerful and astonishing. But to say that this level of fist art was invincible in the world was an exaggeration. You don't understand. Yellow Cattle smiled. Thump! The black yak didn't hold back and directly gave him a slap. Brat calf, tell me. Yellow Cattle glared at him. Now, he wasn't afraid of the black yak at all. He was no longer helpless when he was being taught a lesson. Now, he could definitely challenge and even beat up the black yak. The demon flood dragon fist is recorded in this jade stone, Yellow Cattle informed. Moreover, he wore a mysterious expression and blinked his big eyes. He was in an extremely good mood. When Chu Feng heard this, he immediately gritted his teeth. Just how much did Yellow Cattle like the word demon? First it was the demon ox fist, and now it's the demon flood dragon fist. He was a little suspicious. Was Yellow Cattle from the demonic path in another vast world? Otherwise, why would they always praise this kind of inheritance? I think it's enough to master the demon ox fist. In any case, it's a fist technique of the same level. There's no point in practicing the demon flood dragon fist, the black yak said. Yellow Cattle smiled and said, if I told you that practicing the demon ox fist and then practicing the demon flood dragon fist will cause the power of both fist techniques to skyrocket, would you believe me? After hearing these words, not only did the black yak's eyes go round, but even Chu Feng was astonished and asked for the details. How could this be? If you practice these two types of fists together, you will be able to increase your power by leaps and bounds. If you completely mix them together, it will be even more astonishing, and your battle prowess will multiply. Yellow Cattle informed. So strange. The black yak's eyes lit up. He was abnormally excited. If practicing one more fist technique would allow his strength to skyrocket, he must master it. Chu Feng asked why these two fist techniques could be mixed together. Was there a connection? Yes, they're closely related. Yellow Cattle nodded and told the two a secret. The demon ox fist of great strength used to have an ancient but resounding name. It was called the sky-flattening demon ox fist. And the demon flood dragon fist was called the ocean-restoring demon flood dragon fist. At the same time, there was also an ancient fist technique called the sky mixing rock fist. These three fist techniques originated from a single body. After hearing this introduction, Chu Feng felt it was somewhat familiar. It said that there are a total of 7 fist techniques. Every time one of them is mastered, the power of the original fist technique will increase by a large margin. Every time they are combined, one's strength will increase by leaps and bounds. Yellow Cattle explained in detail. In his world, there was once a person who was fortunate enough to obtain 4 ancient fist techniques and successfully combine them into one. There were few who could match him in the same realm. Chu Feng listened attentively and became increasingly suspicious. He asked, don't tell me the 4th fist technique is the monkey fist. No, the 4th fist technique has been lost. Yellow Cattle shook his head. Chu Feng revealed an odd expression. The sky-flattening demon ox fist, the ocean-restoring demon flood dragon fist, and the sky-mixing rock fist. He couldn't help but think about these names. It would be interesting if some of these fist techniques were combined with the great sage, Chu Feng mumbled. The black yak had lived in this world for a long time. At this moment, he was also dumbfounded. The sky-flattening great sage, the ocean-restoring great sage, and the sky-mixing great sage. Yellow Cattle nodded and said, oh, what you said makes sense because there were indeed people who suspected that these fist techniques were the great sage level. What do you mean by suspected? Just tell me if there is a great sage equal to heaven? Chu Feng asked because this was too strange. I've never heard of it. There are only 4 fist techniques in our world. Yellow Cattle shook his head and told him that many people had indeed suspected that these were the great sage level fist techniques. What exactly is the origin of these 7 fist techniques? Were they created by the bull demon, the dragon demon king, and the rock demon king? Chu Feng asked further. Yellow Cattle shook his head and denied this guess. He told him that the fist techniques grew out of the ground. I want to beat you up, Chu Feng said. How could fist techniques grow out of the ground? Yes, to be exact, they grew out of a mysterious ancient tree. Its name is the Holy Fist Tree. It took root and germinated in a piece of great Tao soil and grew out. In the end, it split into 7 branches and was broken off by 7 different entities. Each of them obtained a fist technique from it, Yellow Cattle said seriously. Chu Feng was speechless after seeing his serious and incomparably solemn expression. The Black Yak was also dumbfounded. 7 ancient fist techniques grew out of the tree. Chu Feng hesitated for a moment. Should he punch Yellow Ox in the face? This was too outrageous. But judging from Yellow Ox's expression, it didn't seem like he was lying. Yellow Cattle said, "You've already seen the refinement sacred tree at Mount Kunlun. It can help you refine weapons. You've also seen the battle sacred tree at the Vatican. It's so small, but the silver walnuts it shed were enough to kill many kings. There are naturally more mysterious and powerful mutant trees in the vast world." This caused Chu Feng and the Black Yak to frown. Then Chu Feng thought of the seed in his bosom. Now, it had the appearance of a great Tao precious bottle. In the end, both he and the Black Yak believed it. Yellow Cattle had no reason to lie to them. The 7 mysterious fist techniques were all born from the same tree. This was the connection between them. Every time a fist technique was fused, its power would increase by a large margin. Let's not talk about other things. Quickly activate the inheritance. I want to learn the Restoration Flood Dragon Fist. The Black Yak bared his teeth. Very well. Yellow Cattle's expression was solemn. He held a small silver spear the size of a chopstick in his hand. He pricked his finger and dripped the blood onto the jade block. Then he circulated his special breathing technique and held the jade block with both hands. One could see the jade block glowing. The blood was absorbed into the body of the flood dragon. In a split second, a dragon's roar resounded. The training room was filled with dazzling brilliance. The flood dragon's phantom in the jade block suddenly became real, as if it was coming to life. Then, Yellow Cattle closed his eyes and sensed it silently. He was accepting the spiritual imprint inheritance. During this process, the jade block glowed. A flood dragon seemed to be surging within the clouds. Moreover, there was a human figure appearing and transforming into various fist seals. Boom! Finally, with a thunderous boom, Yellow Ox leaped into the air with a swoosh and began to unleash his fists. It was as if a flood dragon was stretching its body. The jade block gradually dimmed and returned to its original state. This kind of fist technique was extremely astonishing. Towards the end, a flood dragon's phantom appeared behind Yellow Cattle, accompanied by a dragon's roar. This was the rhythm of cultivating the true form. Both Chu Feng and the Black Yak couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Yellow Cattle was extremely talented. Even though it was his first time coming into contact with this kind of fist technique, he was able to master it immediately. You don't need to watch me practice. You can receive the imprint inheritance from the jade block yourself, Yellow Cattle informed. Is it also a drop of blood? The Black Yak asked. Correct. The 7 fist techniques are closely related. As long as you master one of them, you can use your blood to activate the inheritance within the jade block. Yellow Cattle nodded. The Black Yak couldn't wait any longer. He began to drip his blood on the jade block. Then he held the jade block with both hands and sensed it carefully. The scene from before appeared once again, the deafening dragon's roar and brilliant light. After a long while, the Black Yak stood up. His face was full of joy as he began to practice. Suddenly, a gale arose and thunder rumbled. It was as if a flood dragon was about to fly down from the heavens. Chu Feng received the jade block and obtained the imprint according to the law. Within a split second, he saw a flood dragon awaken from its hibernation after coming into contact with the blood. It danced in the air and emitted a terrifying aura. That was its true form. Following which, a human figure appeared in front of the flood dragon and began to brandish his fist to display this technique. The silhouette displayed a fist technique, while the flood dragon manifested its true form. At the later stages, it would be like the demon ox fist. The true form of a tall, ancient beast would appear behind the spellcaster, trampling the sun, moon, and stars. Now, the flood dragon danced in the air and pierced through the starry sky. The scene was extremely terrifying. After a long while, Chu Feng stared at the flood dragon's true form. He observed all the changes and memorized the fist technique that the person was practicing. Only then did the jade block's radiance gradually recede. Chu Feng stood up and began to stretch his muscles and bones. As he brandished this fist intent, he was like a flood dragon traversing the sky, accompanied by the sound of wind and thunder and the flood dragon's shadow. So much so that the starry sky shattered and the flood dragon's true form, disappearing into the distance, appeared behind him. He had only just started practicing when he realized that it was similar to yellow cattle's. This caused the black yak's eyes to stare blankly. Among the Kunlun kings, he was definitely a great demon with excellent comprehension. Even the old Lama had praised him for his wisdom. But now, the black yak discovered that he was clearly inferior to yellow cattle and Chu Feng. You two are the real monsters. How can you learn it so quickly? This king looks like a mortal. The black yak was furious and began to practice once again. After a day and a night, a flood dragon coiled behind Chu Feng and yellow cattle as they practiced their fist techniques. It carried a primordial aura and a terrifying aura. Both of them felt that their strength had increased. After practicing the demon ox fist, practicing the demon flood dragon fist can indeed increase one's combat strength. Chu Feng sighed in admiration. Moreover, after practicing the demon ox fist, it was easy to practice the demon flood dragon fist. Yellow cattle frowned and said, "Don't you guys feel that it's not perfect toward the end?" The black yak was dumbfounded. Chu Feng nodded. He also felt that the demon flood dragon fist was lacking something. There might be a second piece of jade. That old man is hiding something, said Chu Feng. That was because Chi Honglin had told him clearly that he could find the second piece of jade. But if he were to ask for it now, the Preaching Research Institute would definitely know that he had comprehended this piece of jade. Who knows, they might cause some trouble. I'll go find out where the Preaching Research Institute obtained this piece of jade, said Chu Feng as he walked out of the training room. As he saw it, the Preaching Research Institute must have studied this legendary ancient book for many years. In the end, they gave it to him because they couldn't find anything useful. He guessed that they must have consulted others in the past. They wouldn't have allowed such a miraculous antique to be covered in dust. Chu Feng contacted Linoi. She was from the Celestial Biology and should be well informed. Perhaps she could help him find out some information. Before long, he dialed the other party's communicator and heard a familiar and pleasant voice. "Naoi, I want to ask you for a favor." Linoi listened quietly until he finished speaking. Only then did she tell him that she indeed knew about it, because the Celestial Biology also had such a piece of jade. How is that possible? Linoi told him that the Preaching Research Institute had explored a great tomb at the bottom of the sea. They didn't have enough strength, so they joined hands with the Celestial Biology to excavate it. In the end, 2 pieces of jade were unearthed and divided equally between the 2 parties. What a coincidence. Can I have a look at it? Chu Feng's face was as thick as a city wall. "I'll give it a try," said Linoi. "I'll go find you." Chu Feng already knew that she had returned to Jiangning City and wanted to find her immediately. "Okay." Linoi only said this word before ending the call. Chu Feng and the 2 oxen wanted nothing more than to set off immediately. He asked Lu Tong to help prepare a suitable passenger plane for Jiangning. At the same time, they discussed that if they could successfully obtain the Demon Flood Dragon Fist and increase their combat strength, they would attack Mount Longhu and attempt to take down the ancestral court of Taoism. The Black Yak began to contact his friends. He felt that he should find some reinforcements. The first person he thought of was the Siberian tiger. He used the communicator to call him over. Chu Feng was also contacting the Immortal Phoenix. He felt that if the marine race were to attack the ancestral court of Taoism, bringing along a peerless expert would increase their chances of success. They were already preparing for war. They wanted to occupy Mount Longhu, the legendary ancestral land of Taoism. Chu Feng, Lu Shiyun appeared. Her white robes were otherworldly, and her hair only reached her neck. Her smile was sweet and youthful, full of vigor. She arrived at the hollow jade temple with a white tiger just in time to see Chu Feng and the others. After hearing that Chu Feng and the others were heading south to attack Mount Longhu, she immediately became spirited. She asked in a low voice if they could bring her and her brother along. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.